Hello, everyone, and welcome to another evening of great train layouts live. I am your host, Nick Ozarek, and it's great to have you with us this evening. I have not muted my microphone. I am running a bit late. Sorry, guys. As you may hear in the background, there's a storm, and I was without Wi-Fi for a little bit. Hopefully, we won't have too many issues on that particular front, but it is so good to have you for this exciting build tonight, brought to you by Broadway Limited Imports. And this is another episode in the series of Build It with Broadway, because today we're going to be building a Pennsylvania Railroad themed dockside switching layout, the East Harbor Belt Railway. And we're giving it a Pensy spin to give it some Pensy power, and we're tying that in with Broadway Limited Imports recently announced Pennsylvania Railroad B6 switching steam locomotive. Great to have you as always. I am going to get my chat up in another window to make sure that, that I can be part of the conversation and that you are part of the conversation, because it is always good to have you along for the ride. And let's make sure I'm actually getting stuff. I do see stuff. Okay. If you're out there, do chat and let me know that you're out there, because I'm not seeing any updates on the YouTube front, and so I'm afraid I might cut out all of a sudden. Anyway, let us hop to it. So the East Harbor Railway. This is from June of 1957 model railroader track plan, courtesy of Gordon Odegaard. This one stood out in an era of model railroader track plans that tend to be defined as spaghetti bowls. Like if you go through your archives of model railroader, you tend to see a lot of spaghetti bowls, a lot of circles with cramming as much track into a tight space. This plan stood out to me for a couple of reasons. And as you can see, I got a little excited and I've already laid down the track. But that's also partially to make sure we have enough time to fit everything in today, because there's going to be a lot of detail to this. And we've got a special guest at the 8 o'clock hour. We're going to be joined by Curtis Koch of Broadway Limited Imports, who's going to be talking about some of what they have coming down the pike. And you get to ask him your questions about model railroad manufacturing, BLI products, things of that nature. Let me bring up that other window again, because I thought I had that window open. So, good to have you guys along for the ride. Let us get into it. So, this time, as I said, I kind of cheated. I kind of put things down early. Because this one I imported a while ago, and I was just waiting for an opportunity to do it. So we're going dockside. Let's start off big. Let's start off with a nice big old Liberty ship. These were World War II freighters, 2,700 built during World War II. Of which 4 survived today. I got to see one of these in San Francisco, Jeremiah something. They make a big, impressive background. So this is going to be a wall, but because I don't have a cool dockside background, we're going to kind of make a background for the sake of this. We've got this big old Liberty liner here. And then we're going to have a big old mill right next to that big old Liberty liner. And that's just going to go right next to it. And we're going to put that right about here. We're going to hide the fact that it goes into... We're going to use this unloading bay as a way of camouflaging. Actually, I want this to be a little farther back. Where the track goes into the staging area. This, we're going to get into it in just a couple minutes why I love this particular track plan and this particular staging arrangement. Let me make sure. Oh, interesting. Weird. Sorry, I just noticed for some reason I'm not Let me refresh this window and see if that works. I was realizing I wasn't seeing your chats, despite having the right window open. Maybe that won't be an issue. Okay, there we go. So, hey Mikey, hey Braden, hey Alex. Good to see you guys joining us. Hey Vicky. Yep, BLI will be joining us shortly. So, Gonna go be doing big mill things. Mills are an impressive part of the scenic landscape. I could do it that way. I think I'm gonna do it the other way. Although I'm gonna move it a little bit forward. Turn it around like that. And then we're gonna put the mill like so. That way, you get a little extra room for your town mode cars, so you can have a room for a few cars down there. So those are our mills. Over here we need a furniture company, so I picked out this building. Tried to keep the upping today to a minimum, so this is all about having shopping already taken care of. So we'll put our platform like so. That's our furniture factory. Then a couple of oil tanks for some gas works. Although this was pretty big, so we'll just leave that one right about there. But we're going big. We want big, expansive. Although this isn't actually that big of a track plan. I think it comes to like 12 feet by 6 feet. Let me remind myself of what the dimensions of this guy are, because it has been a while since I imported it. Fortunately, TrainZ has these magical rulers. So we could put one of these rulers down and we could see that it is... Oh, perfect. It is 14 feet long by 10 feet. 14 by 10. So this isn't a teeny weeny little plan, but it is a plan that gets you a lot of dockside switching while giving you your roundy. And again, I really love what they do with the staging here. I think that I like track plans where there's a takeaway lesson, and there's a really cool takeaway lesson with regards to how the staging works. Here we have liquid carbonics. We're going to kit bash a couple of these buildings to make them kind of do a curved type of deal. Need to put a platform in there later, but right now we're just getting the big buildings in place. We've got Standard Oil Company and truck dock. We're going to put that in here like so. And then I think I have a few extra industrial tanks we could put here, here, and here. And this is the beauty of when I have the time to do the shopping in advance. Then it's just like, bam, here's that building. Bam, here's that building. Oh, thank you for the super chat, Millennial Modeler. Most wonderful time of the week. Great Train Layouts Live, PRR style. You got it, and thank you for your support. Yes. It's good to be with you guys. It's so much fun to do this. And this is a plan that I've been looking forward to doing for a while. So we've got our ferry housing here. And then we're going to be putting our... Now, here's what is so cool about this track plan. And what is so unconventional about it. So usually when we're talking car ferries, we're talking about the idea that you have a car ferry, let's say, on a corner of a layout. Like we did this all the way back at episode 1 with the Kootenai Lake and Navigation Company, where you have your car ferry off on a side or maybe over here, and you'd have your sidings going in, and then you have to kind of manually remove the cars or the car ferry itself for your staging. But here's a different take on it. This is what's cool about this one. Your car ferry disappears into the backdrop, so when you're bringing cars into the scene, you can just have them coming from your staging area and push them to be partially visible to the car ferry, and then you're pulling your cars out. And likewise, if you're dropping cars off, you push them onto the car ferry, and then boom, they're in your hidden staging. And you might say, well, Nick, that's not a particularly big staging. And you wouldn't be wrong, but the way to think of this is like two things. One, you could always make it bigger if you wanted to. Like, we have part of the yard visible here. You could hide all of that if you wanted all of that to be on non-visible staging. But you've also got these yard tracks. You've got 2 tracks here. Now, one of these you want to keep free if you want to do running your train around in circles. But you still have a good long siding here that you could use just for your car storage. um, that gives you a good amount to work with. So you kind of have this dynamic staging where hypothetically you never have to flip your cars. So you might have cars that come in from your main line yard. You're picking them up, and every time they are just going to the car ferry, and then they pop right back out. So sometimes you flip your waybills, and so car will go to the car ferry, and then it'll go back to the yard. You could run it that way, but you could also just run it so that every time you have, let's say, loaded coal. So loaded coal's coming from out of world to the interchange yard, and it's going to the ferry every single time. You don't have to then unload the hoppers and then run the empty hoppers back. Your loaded hoppers, they can just keep circling. So that is the brilliance of this plan here. I'm just going to put that loosely there for now. We're going to fine-tune that scene in a little bit. We got ourselves a knitting mill, which means I'm going to bring a slice of the good old FJ&G, Fonda Johnstown and Gloversville, to this layout by way of having the Bredalbin knitting mill do the honors. We're going to get that in place. We'll put a platform for it in a little bit. Then we need a factory that's skinny enough to go between these two tracks. So we've got a factory that's skinny enough to go between these two tracks. Like so. And a freight house. We've got a terminal freight house with a truck dock. And we've got the terminal freight house. Like so. You can tell I was excited by this. I spent a while, again, months ago, shopping for buildings when I was starting to build this. And then I spent some time yesterday also working on that. Got another factory or customer of some kind over here, so we're going to pop them down. That one, unfortunately, already comes with a pre-built loading dock. We'll finesse it there. Mr. Railyard, World War II layout? Yeah, that's true. We've got the Liberty ship there, so it could be World War II. It is Pensy Steam, so we'll go with a yes on that. Thanks, Ben Sylvester, for the compliment. Hey, Big Ben. Braden, as someone who likes docks and lives in PA, this is nice. Good, going for a little bit of that Philly flavor, I'd say. Now, engine facilities. We do not have a lot of room, so it's about tight, compact. That's what we've got going for this one. So we've got standpipe. We've got a little coal bunker here that presumably you'd have a front loader digging the coal and putting it in the engine. And then a nice Pensy water tower we're going to put right about here. Just a little bit of character. And see what we're going for with this. I mean, I love that big old giant mill in the background. This makes me think of Buffalo. This is making me think of Buffalo, New York, which the Pensy did serve. If you've ever been to Buffalo, then you'll know that. Is that really all our buildings? That's all our buildings. Yes. Okay, so where to begin? We got a lot of fun today as far as scenery detailing. That's part of why I skipped ahead and took care of some of that. Oh, gee. A lot of scenes. We could go. We can and will go to town on this. Let us lurk left to right, maybe. So we'll start out here and then come back. Now, hypothetically, this could be against a wall. And I think I'm going to do that. We're going to have that against the wall. Not that changes too much. We've got a road that needs to come through here, crossover, and it goes. It's interesting. So the background is, by their measure, buildings, but we're doing docks. So I think the road will come here, and then we're just going to have a lot of like asphalt and that kind of thing. Asphalt, dirt, and then some kind of key that leads to the boat. Something like that. Hey Sam, thrilled for early release of the BLI layout, the Reading N scale. Yes, thanks for bringing that up, Sam. If you enjoyed our last Build It with Broadway a few months ago, where we built a Reading-inspired coal branch, that is available on patreon.com/theroundhouse. For as little as $1 a month, you're going to be supporting the work that I do. And you get early access to these layout builds before anybody else. So you head over there and you can get access to that. Let me put the road in place, because that's the, what kind of road? Paved road, dirt road, I almost feel like doing this road out of, like dirt. I think this is going to be very dirt, very unpaved. Yeah, I'm digging that as an approach. So, maybe what I want to do is yeah, but I know where the outline is there. Okay. We'll just toggle off the base maps and we'll get to it. So, I want a nice kind of dirt, grass mixture as the base, and then we'll paint things on top of that. So this will be our basis texture, which probably has maybe a bit too much grass, but we're going to just use this as a base, and then we'll kind of vary it from there. And we'll do up to the ferry, focusing one scene at a time. So we'll start with this. Trick with building these train Z layouts is that you do get repeating textures. So you have to be mindful of that, and you kind of vary it. So you start with a base texture, and then you go over it with a bunch of other textures to really hide the patterns, like painting. I love this. This is the Bob Ross portion of the show. Sometimes I wish, I was thinking about this recently, that this would be fun. That there were sound effects with when you like click on things in the menu, or when you're brushing. Because I had this idea, it'd be super fun to do an ASMR video with Train Z route building, where I'd whisper it. I wouldn't do it for one of the live streams, but it would be for what would it be for? Gosh, like an edited video. And so I could edit all those sound effects in, but it'd be far less work if I could just have those sound effects as I'm playing along. That would be the fun of it. So, thumbs up this video if you think Train Z ASMR would be a good idea. Something like that. Something along those lines. Okay. So, trying to make sure, like, at first I'm like, this is a little too green, so we're going to make it a bit dirty. I'm liking how this is looking color-wise. Part of the key with this, too, is going to be, this is flat, and I'm really seeing that with here. This is where it gets a little spaghetti bowl. So our mission today, one of our missions today, is to not make that a spaghetti bowl, but to make it feel like they are distinct scenes. That's a lot of times when it comes to model rarity. Your layout seems bigger if you've got this sense of these are distinct scenes. Okay. So I want some kind of PBR gravel. We're going to make our roads out of stuff like... those rocks are pretty big. But like that... Oh man, the scale on those is super big though. Okay, that'll do for now. So this is our dirt road. I'll probably outline it a little bit better with some fences. I feel like fences are going to be a big thing with this layout. I mean, arguably there should be some paved roads to like get to this ship and so forth. Ooh, I really want to do a traveling crane with that. It's not like the traveling crane would serve any function on this build, but I like the idea that you'd have a traveling crane here. We'll play around with that in a moment. So, where were my roads? Because there has to be a road that gets to this somehow. And this is kind of separated from that. Like, I definitely want to draw a distinction between those two scenes. Oh, thank you for the super chat, Mr. Ailyard. Imagine H1B or D10 switcher this year. Also was my... Imagine H1B or D10 switcher? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Thank you for being part of my life. Oh, you're too sweet, Mr. Ailyard. Well, thank you for the support. I appreciate it. And happy birthday. Really fun to have you here today. Now that I'm looking at it, it's like, okay, I probably should do this as a paved road to here and then maybe spin that off as a dirt road. Otherwise, I think it's going to feel too empty. But this is the benefit of doing the pre-visualization, is that you have the opportunity to see what this looks like before you've committed to, okay, this is what I'm actually doing with this. Before you have to cut the lumber, before you have to do any of the hard decision making. As Bob Ross likes to say, okay, now we gotta be brave here, now we gotta make a decision. Less true in the wonderful world of Trainsy, but definitely true. Oh, I've kind of blocked my pathway to those with those tanks. I guess we'll pretend the trucks can go behind the tanks. I don't really want to go asset hunting for another... Yeah. We'll just pretend that the trucks can go by there. So yeah, you don't have to entirely be brave with Trainsy, and that's kind of the point, in some ways, is that you can experiment, you can try different things. You don't like it, you can just do something new. That's what I love about this. I love the amount of play and exploration we get to do as part of this. Yeah, looks better with an actual legit road. Like so. I'm still not sure where trucks go to unload this, but I think I might be overthinking this. I might be thinking way too much about like how the ship incorporates. And just having it there's probably enough. Oh, Jordan Freeman, thank you for the super chat. We don't make mistakes. We have happy little accidents. You got it. And even there, you can there's no, the oil never dries on this canvas. You can play with it as you see fit. And that is part of the fun. I love getting to fire up Trainsy and spend some time with you guys. Hope you've been having a good summer. Let me know what you guys have been up to. I have been, a lot of places. I've been to a lot of places. I've seen a lot of things. I was out in California. I was out in New Hampshire and Vermont and Pennsylvania and Iowa. I have been to places. It feels good to be home. There was a near solid month of being in and out, which is a good adventure of things. But there is no place like home. It's nice to have my feet back on the ground. Partially because a lot of that was work for clients. My Streamliner Media freelance filmmaking business. I can't wait to show you the things that I have seen this summer are beyond amazing. I am fortunate to get to do the work that I do, and there's a couple of clients I'm really excited to show you. Yeah, really excited to show you what is coming down the pike with them. Arguably, I shouldn't be doing a Cinder Ballast, but I kind of like the idea of doing Cinder Ballast. Something different color-wise. I feel like the last time I did a Cinder Ballast layout was the East Broad Top, so yay for color variation. Oh, but man. Yeah, one of the clients, oof. I will make sure you know. Once I have something I can share of theirs, like a finished video, I will make sure you know who it is. You know who this railroad is. You know. That's all I'll say on that. I look forward to sharing that with you guys. And I will also say it's going to tie in with a future Great Train layout. I will say that. But not one that you know about, so that's the fun of it. Okay. Yeah, I'm liking how this is coming together. Definitely feeling the room for some clutter and some weeds, but color-wise, that's doing it for me. Okay, let's do a little bit of terrain manipulation. Let's raise this up a little bit, just because it's like if this is 100% flat, it's going to be noticeable. And I think just a little bit of a hill here just gives it that little bit of variation. And then likewise for here, I think if we kind of make that dip down, this should probably be a parking lot. We'll get some PBR or asphalt like so. Yeah. And then we'll have a couple of cars parked out there. I have to see what kind of 1940s vehicles that I have. Oh, this is looking good. This is making me happy. Reminding me of a couple of George Fisher's old routes. G. Fisher, for you Tracy folks. He did some really cool builds back in the day. Cape May County, which I reviewed on at the rail yard. There we go. There we go. Yep. Couple cars. We'll go with that. We'll go with a Chevy Fleetline, sure. There. Yep. Just a couple cars makes all the difference. Good evening, SD Pandy. Oh, hey, Curtis. Glad to see you could join us. Look forward to having you on shortly. Alex, think you'll make your way down to Texas? I would love to make my way down to Texas again. Last time I was out in Texas, this is a client I could actually tell you about because I did their work. So if you Google search Panhandle Northern Railway on YouTube, and you look at Omnitrax's official YouTube channel, I made a video for them couple years ago showcasing that railroad and a track rehabilitation project. So that was in Borger, Texas. That was the Panhandle Northern, as the railroad suggests. Neat place to go. I'd love to do a layout inspired by it. It was very post-apocalyptic with shiny brand new pickup trucks is how I describe Borger to people. Very neat area. A lot of heavy duty industry, cool railroading out there. I would love to have another reason to go out to Texas. So, fingers crossed that I get some work out there. That's probably the quickest way I'll make it out there. Okay, I'm loving the color variety we've got here now. Let's just make sure I come all the way to the edge on that. Okay, let's do background scenery things. I know the asset I want to use for this. I don't know if I have it in one of my pick lists or not. There's a specific kind of spline I want to use. Harbor Port. Because I have a lot of metallic ones, but I'm not looking for a metal one. I am looking for a metal one. That's gonna bother me. I'll have to look for it on one of my breaks, which asset I'm looking for there. Maybe I'll hold off on that for just the moment. What else do I want to do here? Maybe some tufts of grass, that kind of stuff. Oh, fences, yes. I feel like some fences are going to go a long way with regards to separating these scenes so it doesn't feel like this huge mess of track. Some mess of track I think is actually not a bad thing because it is a port. We do want there to be a lot of, not that kind of fence. Brick. Do I want a brick fence? Yeah, but that one's kind of thin. This feels too modern. I use chain link all the time. So what we're looking for... Well, I guess you'd have chain link fences in World War II, in the 40s. Yeah. Brick might be too fancy. Brick might be too fancy. Okay. I mean, I like that fence. But I don't think that's quite what I need. I guess I really do need... that chain link fence that I was looking at. I mean, I feel like I use this all the time, but oh well. Yay for consistency. Separate that out there, and I feel like I want to run the fence along the track up to the crossing, and then around the track here. Yep. And I'll need to go from that direction. And then just delete that section, go to there. There we go. Okay. And then maybe some kind of... is there anything I should have there? Not that I can tell. Could have some type of clutter. But could just be empty. Vacant lot with kind of grass type of stuff. Let's see what kind of grass I could put there. Or Kust budget. Yeah, Kust. Yes. And then just lower it up below the terrain a little bit to give that kind of patchy grass sort of effect. Need to look a little bit further. There we go. That kind of stuff. And maybe some of this. Yep. And then need some kind of... Now this could be interesting. So, well, I was thinking of putting a crossover here just because yay for making the track look busy. But technically it doesn't really make sense because that's supposed to be a side. So we'll just put a Hades bumper there and get our... put some kind of platform in place. Like so. Let's see. You could use CDN trucks for... Yes, I could use CDN trucks and probably will. Because I do have those downloaded. So, at some point, yes. I will add CDN trucks. Don't know if I want a grassy one. The cobblestone looks kind of cool. Don't know how realistic it is, but sometimes it's not always about the realism. It's just about, I want this, and so I'm doing this. And that's okay, too. And we finesse it like there. Yeah, that looks cool. So I think that there's... I think tank cars go here, but we could just make it a boxcar industry because we have tanks down here. Tanks go there. Tetsu, hello Nick. Progress on the Bethlehem and Beaver Falls site has been a hiatus. Recent procrastination. Hoping to get the public... update the public with our land next year. Well, good luck on your progress. SD, do you ever build any of these IRL? I will answer that in a minute. I will answer that in a minute. Matthew Harris, hey Nick, how was your day today so far? Great, and I hope yours was as well. And then York Central, good day, good day. Okay, so back to your question, SD Pan. Do you ever build any of these in real life? The temptation is real. There have definitely been a multitude of times I've wanted to. The limitation is space. I'm in an apartment, so I have room for my Greenfield Village layout, and that's kind of about it. I did design the engine terminal way back at the start of the year, which I haven't yet started construction on because I'm still finishing up things with Greenfield Village. Oop, I'm going to have to lower down that track. So for me, the value of this is just being able to kind of explore and try these different ideas and concepts out. I screwed up something there. Because I can't do everything. So some of it is to be able to play with this and say, well, what do I like from this plan? This plan catches my eye. How well does it actually build? What's the play value on it? So far, 0. Oops, I have to lower that. Okay. So far haven't built anything yet that I've designed here, but there's definitely a lot of learning that I experience through this. And I've come to make my peace with that. I just like the fun of what I'm doing. I used to think it was about the end result, but these days I've come to recognize I just like doing this. I like talking with you guys. I love designing these worlds. That's a reward in and of itself for me. Good question, SD. Thank you for asking. See, even just having this fence, you know how I am about scene separation. And just that fence alone, now we've got a little bit more going on. I want to put a yard office there. There was one I saw yesterday that I'm like, this is perfect, because, yeah, like, so. The only trick with this is I don't want to, like, you risk making it kind of obvious that you have this really tight curve if you do something like that. So we're not doing that. But if we put it against the track like that, I'm liking how that looks a lot. That is cool. And then it kind of makes sense, and then we don't have to worry about the road crossing or how it interfaces back here, because we've just got it to the yard office. Brilliant. I love that. So yeah, that's the fun of it. It's just exploring, experimenting. I love doing these builds. And I love being joined by you guys. It's really gratifying to have your company and that you guys are so interested in what I do, and I hope that it helps you out with your own layout builds. At the very least, I hope you have fun. I mean, that's one of the many things I love about railroading is, and being in this hobby, is there's just so many different ways that you can have fun and experiment and play. And it's always fun to learn and to find new places to do that. I feel like I don't use these crossings that much, so I'm going to use them for a change of pace. Just because I'm always using the darker colors, but let's have some fun with the lighter colored ones. And do like that. This is making me happy. And you see, this would not be, like, as far as layouts go, if you're somebody who's like, landscaping freaks me out, I don't want to worry about mountains, I don't want mountains, I don't want I don't want to have to make a million trees, here's the layout for you, because this is a lot about just having your building kits and your backdrops. And that's really what you need. And honestly, you could take, even ignoring all of this, which we're not going to, we'll get to it, but even if you ignored this section, you could do a layout just with this. Like, this would be your interchange, and you would just have switching to a couple of tracks here and a few tracks here. You might need to fit a run around there or there, but this would not be particularly hard to do. It does need space, but I think, again, for a 1957 track plan in an era where a lot of these track plans are spaghetti bowls, I mean, I encourage you guys, look through the Model Railroader archives. And that's not to say the other track plans are bad. Everybody, you do what you want, you build what you want. If somebody wants a spaghetti bowl, I'm not going to begrudge them that. But so many of those plans were about tight curves and as much as you can fit into a little space. And obviously people are still into that kind of thing, but they look like you're doing a lot in little. The key, in my opinion, is to do a lot in a little, but not make it look like you're doing a lot in a little. And sometimes it's just good to do a little. You wouldn't have to populate this as much as we have. That's your prerogative. Hey, Moonlight Trains. Let's see. Okay, few questions. So, Matthew Harris, is using plaster a good idea for making roads for model railroad? Yes. Practice. Practice. I used plaster for Greenfield Village. It will dry. I got plaster of Paris from Lowe's, and it's good, but it dries very quickly. So you might want to practice just to get the consistency right, not too wet, not too dry, and then I used Woodland Scenic's paving tape to create the edges, so that then I could ensure the road was level, so I'm not having weird undulations in it. Practice. Plaster is probably my least favorite thing in terms of model railroading, just because it is unforgiving. It's not that you can't adapt it once it's hardened in terms of adding on to it, but once it's hardened, it is what it is, as my wife likes to say. You're not really going to change it much once it's done. Once it's hardened. And so you might run the risk of, oh, I don't like that, and then you have to kind of undo and redo. Not the end of the world, mind you, but just to say, practice. Actually, I'm going to put a spline point there, just so that we don't have that. And then we're going to add a little bit of an incline here. Not a ton, but this is a cold trestle. Gives us an excuse to go up, and hey, so much of this railroad is flat. You could build it as flat, but I like the idea that we're going to have just a little bit of a grade. Yeah, like so. Perfect. Okay, just to give it a little bit of elevation and distinction. And then we're going to lower the terrain around there. We're going to lower it by enough that you could fit a truck under one of these. At least I think that's how much I want to lower it. But I like the idea of getting it particularly low, just because so much of this is flat. I want a little bit of visual contrast. So yes, plaster, yes, but practice. Practice before you commit. You could try on, a little piece of foam or cardboard. Practice working with the stuff before you go to do it for real. And obviously plenty of great YouTube tutorials out there to hone your skill further. T-Crash, did you hear that BLI is working on an HO 1522? I believe I did, and maybe Curtis could talk about that a little bit when he comes on very shortly. And Moonlight Trains, are you going to make more at the rail yard videos? I feel like I answered this probably once every stream, so for those of you who've heard the answer before, bear with me. The short answer is yes, but I don't know when. The slightly longer answer is it's always possible that I will, but I have to be creatively motivated by something. I have to be in the mood for it, because I have so many things going on and so little extra time. If I'm bringing it back, it's because I have an idea and I have the free time to have fun with it. I will say, I do have an idea for what I'd like to do next. I don't know if it happens this year. Maybe it does. Stay tuned. Stay tuna fished. But I hope that you enjoy some of my other creative endeavors while you wait for that to happen. And then I'm just going to go crazy with the cinders around here because that's all dump, 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 dump. So I like that. I also do want to put a buffers at the end, just because otherwise that feels like a recipe for disaster. And we'll put it like there. I suppose I could make that a little longer. Just to, yeah, because why not? I made it the length that it was in the design, but yeah, now I can fit 2 coal cars. I like that variety. Okay, coming up on 8 o'clock, let me just, oh, I should put the, I'm gonna put the crossing in. And I probably should raise the terrain for that one as well, because I'm going to have to raise the road to meet it, and I'm going to have to make sure the track doesn't increase in height. So there we go. And then we raise up the road. Obviously, I'll need some grade crossing signs and the like, but for now, just trying to make it look pretty enough. I suppose I could put some grade crossing signs in there. That won't take too long. And we've got the rough pattern of things. And man, I'm liking that. I'm happy with that. Drywall compound for the road, because I was thinking drywall compound might work for the roads. Your goal is you want something that you can sand into a flat, smooth surface. So if you could do that with drywall compound, go for it. That would be my thinking on that particular front. Oh, this is for 2 tracks. I don't have any 2-track crossings, ironically. I think I have a B&M crossing, though. That's kind of looks... Xing? There we go. That's what I wanted. There we go. And put our crossbucks here. Mikey Allen, C, rail map DC for Train Sim Classic. That was a spaghetti bowl map setup. Colton and Northern. Yeah. And look, if people like that kind of thing, I'm not going to hold that against them. Just not my style. Hey, Jessica Kazumi. This is Train Z19. Hey, Jimmy. Yeah, if you want to hear from BLI, then you should hang tight for a few. I'm just going to finish answering Braden's comment. Eagle Lake West Branch, railroad was forced railway, built the transfer pulpwood. Interesting. Okay. And Millennial Modeler. I love the Pensy, but this layout is screaming a little Pence Central. Yes. In fact, when I started building this, off-stream months ago, and I did the track, I actually was thinking kind of 60s era switching layout. And that's the beauty of it. It'd be very easy to adapt to that. But never had the kind of inkling to follow through, and now and I really wanted to do the 060 thing. Okay, so I am going to take a brief break to bring in our guest, and he's going to talk about Things Broadway Limited Imports, and he's going to answer your questions, and then we will continue on with the build, finishing the other half scenically. And then as we do, we're going to have some fun and do a little switching. So hang tight here on Great Train Layouts Live. All right, and we are back here on Great Train Layouts Live, and I've brought somebody with me, Director of Sale Marketing, sorry,
There you go.
Marketing and Social Media. Please welcome to Great Train Layouts Live, Mr. Curtis Koch.
Hello, everybody. How's it going?
It's good to have you with us tonight, Kurt, and looking forward to being able to talk more about some of the stuff going on because you've got some nifty products in store.
Yeah, we got a lot of great stuff, both for HO scale and N scale, and especially when we've got some great little dockside switchers that can go with your the layout you've been building so far this evening. There's a lot we can get to tonight for sure. In the only about an hour or so that I'll be on here, but it'll be a well worthy hour to talk about everything trained with your viewers here.
Yes. So if you have questions and for Kurt about either Broadway Limited products or TikToking, model railroad TikToking, which I still find wonderfully fascinating that that's a thing. Um, you are free to ask away in the chat, and we'll keep an eye on that. Um, I'm gonna preview what we're gonna be playing with, and you could talk about what the development of this, which is your B6. So
Yeah.
we've got in trains. It's going to be ready to roll next hour when we've got our switching going on. Um, so you guys, obviously being Broadway limited imports, have a history of doing Pensy things.
Yeah, the Penzi stuff has always been a big seller of our. Of course, it's in our name. Besides the B6 that you see there, we've got the Pennsylvania Railroad S1, the 6446 coming out later on this year. We've also an HO scale. We actually just got some samples today that I shared on our Facebook page and Instagram page. We got our first few production or pre-production samples of the Pennsylvania Railroad Q2. That was a 4464, if I'm recalling that correctly. And then we've also got a bunch of other variety of stuff. We released the S2 turbine about a year ago. We've got a wide variety of Penzi steam stuff. And if you're looking just for Penzi rolling stock, we've got you covered too. We've got the PB70 combines coming out later, early next year. We've got the Z74D business cars that we announced at Amherst. Those will be coming out also early next year. Individual lighting controls on all of that stuff. The Penzi plays a big role for us here, and we get a lot of Penzi requests from a variety of different prototypes, whether it be, the Q1 has also been asked about if we'll do that at some point, amongst a bunch of other things. The Shark Noses we've done for diesels. We're also doing N scale E units, the E7s and E8s. We're doing those in Penzi. So Penzi plays a big role, like you were saying, and it also adds another element for us because it is probably the most sold railroad, like in terms of that and UP. Those are probably the two most popular railroads that we sell, just because the sales are always consistently there for us. And it's fun to make the cool, unique stuff, especially the steam stuff that Penzi has had. I mean, we can go from something as small as a B6 to an S1. The possibilities are endless for us there.
Yeah, and okay, I've got to ask the story. The S1, that's that is such a fascinating locomotive being a one. I mean, you teased it way back right before you announced it as a one-off locomotive, and that engine is so one-off in so many ways. Um, and you're doing that as a brass hybrid, correct?
Correct. Yeah, and part of it is because um, a lot of people ask us the question, "Why are you guys always making the brass stuff?" Well, it's a combination of reasons. One, it's actually cheaper for us to do the tooling as a brass hybrid. Another locomotive that's a good example that we announced earlier this week is the Union Pacific Bull Moose. That is also going to be a brass hybrid, and also it's a combination of a few things. One, the tooling costs for us is actually, believe it or not, cheaper to make it as a brass model than as a full diecast model. And the other part too is that the parts are more readily available for us in brass. Then we wouldn't have to go ahead and manufacture brand new tooling to make the parts that you would be found on a bull moose or an S1, etc. It's relatively easy. I know a lot of customers are probably thinking, well, the S1 was pretty much streamlined, and yes, that is correct. But there are subtle differences in terms of just how much detail you can see. Like, for example, we're making the skirted versions, but under skirts, there's parts of pictures of the locomotive where it wasn't wearing skirts in its later years of service. And there's also other details that we're looking to incorporate with that possibly in future runs. There were some customers who were asking us because the locomotive actually had like a little nameplate on the front that had the name of the train that it was pulling. So the Broadway Limited, the Trailblazer, the General, all of that stuff was all placed on the front of the engine and just the little details. And it's cheaper for us, like I said, to do the manufacturing in brass than it is to create the tooling all in die cast and then to manufacture it that way. And it allows us to get more road specific details on that.
Now, how in the name of all that is holy is that thing going to get around 18-inch radius curves?
Well, it has the same design base as our HO scale PRRT ones that we've done, those other duplexes that we've done. We haven't gotten any samples yet. So we're hoping that it'll still be able to do that and we'll have testing. But the factory has told us that it can do 18 inches. And until we actually get, some samples in, we'll be able to kind of determine, how that'll work. But the factory, like I said, has told us that they can make it work with 18. So we're going on their word here and we'll see how that turns out. But we do plan it to navigate tighter turns. So customers who are a little bit hesitant to get it and, they want to have it, but they're worried about just the pure size of it. Because I don't think a lot of people know this, but it's bigger than the big boy in terms of length. So it's definitely the largest locomotive we've ever built. And it's also just got such a cool, sleek design to it that it's definitely going to stand out, whether you have it on a, on a passenger train, or if you want to get, a little more fun and make it, freight, however you want to do it. The possibilities are all over the place for you for the S1.
And I think that something that I like having opportunities to explore here is the fact that so often that you think about like, oh, I need all this space. I mean, and yes, if you're going to run a massive roster of locomotives, okay, but let's say you really like one particular engine, but you don't have a lot of space to work with, and I think that it would be. I love being able to build designs that you think, oh, surely you'd need more space to do that, but you don't actually necessarily do, especially if these locomotives can accommodate tighter radius curves.
Yeah, and even more so, like we get no joke, Nick. So we launched the Conductors Club a while ago, and we had or earlier this year, I should say, and we part of it made it. We had a product suggestion portal, and in that product suggestion portal, we probably no joke have about 2,000 to 3,000 requests for different locomotive types, whether it be switchers, mainline steam, mainline diesel, all that sort of stuff. And for us to kind of break it, like the B6, for example, is the way for us to kind of break into making smaller scaled steam, because we've never done steam locomotives as small before. Typically, if you wanted to get an 060 or an 080, you probably would, at least most customers, I would assume, would probably go the route of getting a Bachmann one. And there's nothing wrong with Bachmann; they make some good stuff. But just for in terms of what we can do at Broadway with the details, of course, you get the weight with that pulling power. These locomotives were nicknamed shifters, and they were used all around the Pennsylvania Railroad system. They had several different classes of them. There was of course, we're talking about the B6 SB. That's what's on the the layout there. And those were built between between 1916 and 1920, and there were 238 of those built. So they were very common amongst the Pennsy system, and they lasted up until, in some cases, around July of late 1959 or so. So this covers a long range of areas where you can, really get some neat little switchers, not only just to work in your freight yard or your passenger yard or on a dock or wherever. But they also worked in branch line service, so it's not uncommon to see them going down a little branch line, hauling a mixed train, here or there. They really do you are used for a lot of different variety of things, and I think that's what makes the B6 such a cool project for us, is that it's got that versatility of not only just being a yard switcher and our first yard switcher, but it's also got that that versatility of being at times a road engine, and you don't really see that in steam engines, especially of that size. Normally, you maybe would find it maybe as a 260 or something like that, but for these little 060s to get some mainline time too, it's a fun little project for us for sure.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you're entering the territory of smaller locomotives, because your consolidation, both the original Pennsy H10 as well as the kind of the offshoot versions you've done of that, have been tremendously popular from what I've seen. I've seen them for sale in a number of stores, um, and I think there's such a large demand for smaller road power, because I think for a long time the mentality in the industry has been just kind of focus on the big steam, get your Challengers, your Daylight, like big name, and I get it, those sell, but to be able, I think that in this day and age, especially where younger people are building smaller and smaller layouts, there's a strong market for your Moguls, your Mastodons, 10-wheelers, just nice, tight, compact power, to be able to do the road switching and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and you're right. There is a market for those smaller steam engines, and we're trying to break into that. A lot of people ask us, "Are you going to do, this prototype or that prototype?" And when we're making something as a starting project, such as a B6, Penzi is, like I said earlier, is the most popular road name for us. And if for us, it's in order for us to determine, like, okay, do we want to make a Union Pacific 060, with a Vanderbilt tender, or whatever. In order for us to come to that determination, we need to see how the sales do of other locomotives of that same, style, to see if there's a market there. And if there is a demand for it, which we have seen with the product suggestion portal, we've seen a lot of requests for road specific smaller steam. When that request and those demands are there, we're happy to look into fulfilling that whenever we can. It's really not that difficult for us to do. It's only a matter of can we sell, just spitballing a number, can we sell 2,000? Can we sell 2,500? For us, if especially we're putting a lot of investment dollars into these locomotives, and I'm not just talking about in terms of like the motherboards and that sort of stuff. The real dollars comes in the tooling, like I was talking about with the bull moose and the brass hybrids, why they're sometimes cheaper, is that in order for us to tool a new locomotive from the ground up and to make sure that all the details are there accurately, it's with the way that how inflation has impacted the hobby, the cost of labor has risen. For us, it's almost we're investing nearly $250,000 to $500,000 into designing, and then the big expense for us is building the tools for the factory to be able to build the models. And then that's why prices across the industry are also very high, is because we're not the only one. Other manufacturers are experiencing the same issues we are, and that's what makes it difficult, especially for, I know, younger modelers who are trying to break into the hobby, and they want to have a smaller layout, or they may have a smaller layout because that's maybe what they can afford to build, or the space they have. And it's hard for them to maybe justify spending a couple $100 on a die cast engine when they could spend maybe half that price on a plastic one. And with all the features and stuff that we've put into ours, it's tough, and it's very much an investment. So when people ask us, "Oh, are you going to do this UP, consolidation, this Harriman consolidation?" Well, yeah, we'd like to, but we want to see how these other road specific ones sell first, and if the market's there, then great, then we can go ahead and look at making the other popular ones that we haven't done yet, and then go from there.
So let's have a look at some of your guys' questions and comments. Matthew Harris. So what region of trains do you guys make at BLI? Kind of a lot of
Uh,
them. What do you say?
I was to say we do a lot of stuff, primarily North American. We've in the past have dabbled into some Canadian steam. We haven't made any Canadian specific steam in a while, but I would say primarily United States railroads in terms of steam locomotives, at least United States wise. But for diesels, we've actually been really up in our diesel game with getting more road specific details. We do anything from F units all the way up to the newest ones of such as the SD70 Aces, and our new run of HO scale Aces will be in sometime in mid October to early November, and those are all die cast. So that we put in the money and investment to make these all die cast ones, and still we're able to get the road specific details and stuff on it. And Nick, these models, these SD70s weigh just under 2 pounds,
Whew,
and they
that's
pull
chunky.
quite a punch. Yeah, it's very hefty. I was in St. Louis for the St. Louis RPM meet. For those of
Mm.
you who don't know what the RPM meets are, those are real prototype modelers, and those are where you would find the hardcore guys, if you will, where they model the prototype to a T. Every road specific detail's got to be there, and that sort of thing. And when we were in St. Louis, I took one of the samples we had. I have a buddy who lives in St. Louis, and I took it to his layout at his home, and it pulled 80 freight cars on about a 1.5% grade, just the one unit. So
Nice.
these units will really pack a punch. We've got a lot of really good paint schemes. If you go to our website, broadway-limited.com, you will find a lot of those paint schemes, and some of them are still available for pre-order through your favorite dealer. So if you're looking to add one to your collection, anything from Union Pacific Heritage units to the new UP paint scheme to Canadian National SD70M-2s, and those SD70M-2s have Canadian specific details. So you'll see those will look really, really close to the prototype. And of course they smoke too. So you'll have a diesel that smokes, and it's really cool where, when it's idling, you see, very, very faint trail of smoke coming out. But, once you start accelerating, you start seeing it, like it's really throttling up, and it makes such a cool sound too. So, back to the question, we do a lot of stuff. There's really anything we won't do, I should say.
Pacific Productions, thank you so much for the super chat. I just wanted to thank BLI for making their new GS4s. I managed to get my hands on one, and I'm very happy with it. I really needed to replace my old Bachmann one. I haven't been able to run it, but hopefully soon, though.
Oh yeah, those GS4s are phenomenal. Sounds recorded right off of 4449, and even more so, the second run we're actually in the works right now, and we're actually working on coming up with de-skirted versions of those
Mm.
locomotives. So those will be possible in the second run. We're still working on the details of some of that and working with our factory and the designers to make sure that the tooling costs won't be too much to do the de-skirted versions, but those will be on our radar for sure. So, but thank you for purchasing one, and I'm glad that you like it. And I'm hoping that you get to enjoy that, and hopefully you have some daylight cars to pull that with. Unless you got like the freight version, the black one, the War Baby, then hopefully you got some good rolling stock to put behind those engines.
Millennial Modeler, N Scale Sharks, I'll be there for them.
The N scale sharks are in the works. N scale GP30s are also in the works for us. So those will be still in the design queue right now. We actually shared a teaser of the GP30 in our Broadway Flyer newsletter, which if you don't get our emails, there's an actual version on our website that you can go read for yourself. But we share a lot of stuff in our newsletters. But our Conductors Club members get first heads up on those exclusive projects went through their emails that they get from us. Yeah, sharks are coming in N scale for sure. They're really popular in HO. They're coming to N scale. Don't worry.
Oh, you've just made a bunch of D&H people very happy. Uh, let's see. Can't wait for when they Virgo Drusky. I can't wait for when they hopefully make the S1 in N scale, presuming he's referring to the PRR S1 and not an Alco S1.
Yeah, I would assume so too. Yeah, the PRRS one. If you have any friends that are HO scale guys, usually our philosophy is that if they do really, really well in HO, then they come to N. So if you know friends who are HO skillers, tell them to get an S1, and that'll further increase your chances of getting on an N scale. We haven't gotten to that point yet of determining whether or not we want to do it in N scale, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there, because we haven't even released the HO ones yet. We haven't even gotten the samples of the HO one yet, so that's further on down the road, maybe a couple of years for that.
SD Pandy, I know BLI made some O-scale water tanks. Is there any chance for any more 2-rail O-scale offerings?
So O-scale is a little difficult for us to commit to. O-scale, in terms of like accessories, we would probably look into it, like another version of like a water tower or something like that. Rolling stock, maybe we'd look into that. Locomotives, though, I don't think we would break into the locomotive market, and the reason is that we would have to basically create our own version of like a throttle system for customers to use, because a lot of customers will have like Lionel or some MTH version of how they power their O-scale layout, and that would just cost a lot of money for us to invest into, especially to break into an O-scale market where, you know, it would be a huge investment for us. So I don't think we would make anything in terms of, like I said, locomotives, but possibly rolling stock and maybe more accessories like a water tower, you know, or something like that. We have had a lot of O-scalers ask us about that, and trust me, we really wish we could, because our both Ken Silvestri, who I'm sure some of you guys would probably know, and Bob Gruba, who's our president and CEO, they actually both worked at Williams and at Lionel before Bob started up BLI. So, yeah, unfortunately, probably not on the radar for O-scale locomotives, but we'll look at other stuff too coming for accessories and stuff.
Yes, and honestly, having talked with various folks, this is a hard industry to break into. You know, regardless of whether you're looking to do just the kind of smaller 3D print thing or become the next BLI, Bachmann, Rapido, whatever. Like, not any, like, have you considered entering the baking industry? For, you know, have you considered, like, spoiler alert, I have no idea if it's any easier to get into the baking industry, but the threshold is certainly high for this one.
Yeah, it is. And there really is a lot of investment. So if you're going to break into this industry, you're either better off working for like a company like us, or you're better off, if you want to do it yourself, you just got to make sure that you have the financial resources to really break into it. I know there's a couple of newer companies that have been formed recently, so it is possible. It's not impossible to do, but you really got to have the resources. You got to, at least I would say, suggest, if you wanted to do it, get into the industry and work for a little bit, because there are a lot of things that you have to know. I was a customer 2 years ago in the hobby, and you know, I've been at Broadway for just over a year now, and oh my gosh, Nick, I can't even tell you how many things that there are to know about the model railroad hobby and industry as a whole, in terms of learning how much things cost is just one thing in particular, but just the amount of work that goes into making sure every little aspect of a model is, you know, there. Because I mean, every customer, myself included, they'll be able to tell you like, hey, you're missing this detail, or hey, this thing is wrong, you know, or you know, that you have the wrong horn type, you know, or whatever it might be. You know, everybody in this hobby is always willing to, you know, get on top of it. So and I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just mean like is not afraid to point out when there's something missing. So you got to make sure that you have the resources and wherewithal to do that. And thankfully, like for us, we collaborate with a lot of the, you know, historical societies, such as the PRR, UP, Santa Fe, etc. We work with a lot of those historical societies to make sure that the details are accurate, and the sounds are accurate and everything like that. And in some cases, when we can go out and record the sounds. We were in New Mexico about a month or so ago, recording the 2926 in Albuquerque, and we're also releasing the Santa Fe 3751 in N scale. And actually, our sound engineer is actually going to Los Angeles in a few weeks to record the 3751 for the model. So, I mean, we go through great lengths to go through it. And if you're looking to break into the industry, you got to be able to do those sort of things to, make sure that your models are good for customers and, live up to your standards too. Because I'm sure if you're looking to break into it, you yourself are probably a customer or a modeler, like how I was.
Yep. Yeah. So much of it is about um, entities that I've talked to. It started as, well, we really found that we needed X for our own layout. I mean, Jason's been very open about saying, hey, I choose products based on what's going to work for my layout.
Yeah.
And they, yeah. So, for his Kingston sub. Going back to your questions, Mr. Railyard, could BLI make Canadian or Mexican steam locomotives in the future?
Um, yes, we're looking into several options for Canadian Steam. Some I can't quite share yet because we haven't committed to any of them yet. But we are looking into some Canadian Steam. Mexico Steam, I'll be honest, is a little tough to gauge. We have a good amount of customers in Mexico, but would it sell as well as a road name such as Union Pacific or Santa Fe? That's tough. That's very tough. I would love to be able to do it. Don't get me wrong, but one of the reasons why we have this product suggestion portal for people to fill out their suggestions is that if we got all of a sudden 200 people that say they want this Mexican specific steam locomotive or diesel, then we're like, oh, okay, there clearly is a market for this. People want this, and we look into it. So if you go on our website, Broadway-limited.com, underneath the club tab, you'll see the product suggestion portal. You click on that, it'll bring up a screen, and then you just click the button to suggest, and then you fill out the form. And actually, all the suggestions come to my inbox, my email inbox, so I see all of it. So I currently have about 180 suggestions I haven't read yet or filed away yet. So if you're wanting to stuff my inbox with more stuff, please feel free, but I won't get to it until after Labor Day.
Good to have that disclaimer. Thank you for the super chat, Jordan Freeman. Product request: Southern 630 with actual Southern valve gear.
That's a good suggestion. We've gotten that a lot, and we've gotten a lot of other requests for a lot of other Southern steam locomotives. The PS4 has been one of them that's been requested very heavily for us. I know there's of course 1401 at the Smithsonian and everything. So there's a lot of market for Southern steam. That stuff is again on our radar, but we don't have it in the design queue just yet. But it's on our radar of stuff we want to make. It's just a matter of getting through the other stuff first.
Let's see. NW611J. Can we see a Norfolk and Western 480? I certainly hope so. I am rooting for that one personally.
475 is also one of the most heavier requested engines for us. We've gotten a lot of requests for that one as well. So again, fill out the product suggestion portal. I'm all for these models being made, just for the record. But it's a matter of convincing my bosses. So if you have all the information that you can give us into the suggestion portal, the better. And we'd love to see your suggestions. And I'm not saying no; it's definitely in the works. I would say we probably are going to avoid some of the higher end Steam projects just for now in terms of Norfolk and Western, like the J or the Y6B or Class A. But like the 480, the Mastodon would definitely be on our list for sure.
Yeah, that's one where, I mean, right now your offerings are brass, so
yeah,
as in like old school brass, not brass hybrid stuff.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm rooting for that one. So I will yes, I will back up what he says and
was that one,
fill out the form.
You had a CP.
Oh yeah, so
was your suggestion?
Yeah, so my Canadian bias on full display to the earlier question about CP Steam. Yes, 2317 is my baby. That's my big request.
My mother-in-law was actually just in Steamtown, and she sent me a bunch of photos, and one of the ones she saw was 2317. So I should have forwarded that to you when I got it, but
perfect.
It didn't dawn on me at the time. But she was there, and she was at Steamtown. I think actually Steamtown's having an event.
They're Railfest. Yep.
Yeah, that's starting up at some point.
Yeah. No, It's one that I hope for. I mean, it's a tricky one in the sense that, like, for most people, it's 2317 and that's it.
Yeah.
It's you'll have your Canadian modelers hoping like, oh, can we get the original tender? Can we get the new tender? Can we get the elephant
Yeah.
ears? So I acknowledge the challenges of selling that one, but hopefully you have enough Steamtown diehards like me. So that's my bias on
Steam,
display.
Steamtown and Strasbourg. There's a lot of big Steamtown and Strasbourg fans out there for sure.
Yes, hence undoubtedly a source of the one of the sources of can we get the mastodons.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. Um, Virgo Drusky, will there be a Reading Northern paint scheme for the N scale GP30s?
That probably will come in a future run. We haven't nailed the paint schemes just yet. The ones we're working on right now are a lot of the big name railroads. Usually for a lot of manufacturers like us, usually the most popular road names are usually first. And that because those will sell the most and we can recuperate a little bit of the money that we've spent on tooling for those locomotives. But for example, this newest run of GP30s that we've done in HO scale, Reading was on the list for that. So Reading would definitely be in the works. I don't know if it would be in this first run or not, and I would assume that it probably would come in run 2, but no guarantees. But it will for sure be on the list and be made at some point.
Good to hear. We did Reading and Northern last month. I hope you joined us for that, and we'll be back there within the next couple of months, Virgo. So if you like Reading Northern, stay tuned to Great Train Layouts Live for that. The Steam Channel, looking forward to the Burks this fall. They should be gorgeous.
Oh yeah, those Boston and Maine Burks, those are really gorgeous models. We've gotten some of the samples, and we haven't gotten any of the painted samples yet, but those T1A Burks look really, really well. Again, I was in St. Louis. I had one of the samples with me, and at my buddy's layout, we were able to put about 50 reefers, PFE reefers behind it, and it can pull a lot of those cars. And some of those cars had a little bit of drag to them too, so it's definitely got the oomph pulling power. And it's just such a unique locomotive with that coffin feed water heater, surrounding the front and the low mounted headlight.
Yeah.
I know the Boston Maine crews hated it, and I know Santa Fe and I think Southern Pacific too. They both ended up rebuilding them at some point later on to further meet their specs because they weren't fans of how they ran either. But I know they were notorious for derailing when going backwards. That was one of the biggest things that the Boston Maine crews complained about.
Interesting. Well, goes to show that sometimes the things that stand out for us as fans are really a pain in the butt for the actual crews who gotta work for them. Quick, before I get back to your questions, just to talk a little bit about one of these not brain farts. That's what I'm having at the moment. Brain spurts is initially this was just going to be part of a river, and then I thought this could be a nice sort of artificial canal type of thing. Obviously,
yeah, I've been watching you build that. I like how it's kind of turned out, and the little dockside wall that you've built alongside the warehouse there and everything. It looks really well. Really well done.
Well, thank you. This is why I should have more guests on, and I get to have even more compliments as I go. Well, thank you. But yeah, and that was just, and that's why I love doing these live streams. Is that it wasn't really designed as if you look at the track plan, it's clear that they envision more of just kind of a natural waterway. But partially because the terrain features in Train Z are hit or miss, as we all know. But I just saw that one like this gives me an excuse to have it wider. But also, I don't think I've done an artificial canal on one of these builds yet. So just kind of something artistically different that I get to express that gives a little bit more space. I'm just going to have to blend it in with some texturing. And then I got to find the right kind of bridge.
It's funny because I play a lot of these games too. I play, Trains 2022, I think was the one that I have most recent of. But I play Run 8, I play Railroader. I have open rails. Like I have a lot of the different train sim games and stuff like that. I'm watching you do this. I have so much respect because I would not have the patience to get the camera angle right, and clicking on the different nodes and everything like that to make sure that it gets to how you want it to look. I just don't have the patience. I would rather just run trains, just me personally. But I appreciate that you have the patience and wherewithal to go ahead and build that sort of stuff. And like you and what's his name? Approach Medium.
Oh yes, yep, Joe.
Yeah, you guys. Yeah, Joe does a great job and on his stuff too. Like I have the Pennsylvania and Berwind on my game, and have run several different steam locomotives and diesels on that, and it's a fun game. It really can pass the time pretty nicely.
Yes, it's the thing that I like is that a lot of the train Z routes are small to mid. So if you want just kind of a little bite-sized action of operating something, I mean, that's definitely the way I've gravitated towards in my route building. Used to do a lot more of running for hours and hours on end. Like back like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I'd easily spend like 4 to 6 hours playing MSTS, just driving, a route end to end. Once in a great while, I'll do that. But for kind of bite-sized action, some of the Train Z offerings are super great. And Joe's good people. I need to challenge him to a head-to-head build-off at some point. So we'll see what excuse we can have. I'll lay down the gauntlet.
We could sponsor that too.
Oh, that could be fun.
Get you guys to build off some. We'll figure it out. We'll talk later.
Yeah, we'll figure that one out. If you let me know if you guys want to see me officially challenge Mr. Approach Medium, if that is his real name, to who's the boss of Train Z live stream route building. Oh, that'd be fun. Okay, we'll go back to some of your questions now. Let's see. William Babcock with a great question. How do you decide what models to reissue?
So really just, I'm guessing he's assuming in terms of like reruns. So if we make a model once and we decide to do another run, well, it's really quite simple. Kind of comes down to sales, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Customers sometimes will groan at us for making another big boy, but I'll tell you what, man, if everything we made sold as well as big boys do, obviously the most popular locomotive right now, but if everything sold as well as a big boy did, we would do multiple runs. And sometimes it's hit or miss. Like, we did a couple of projects that haven't quite panned out well for us in terms of sales, but the models themselves are really, really neat. We made the SD40, not the SD40-2, the actual the predecessor, the SD40. And sales on that weren't as strong as we had hoped. Same with a couple of other models kind of like that. But a lot of other stuff too, like if it's hit or miss, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like if you want to see similar models of a type, it helps if you buy it or if your friends buy it. And I know that sounds kind of cliche, and it trying to make me, from the customer's perspective, it's like, oh, you just want me to buy to support your company. Well, yes, but also it really does give us an idea as to, is there demand for this sort of style of locomotive or passenger car, like the business cars, for example. Both the Pennsy ones and the UP ones were really, really strong sellers. So we've got more of those sort of cars in the works because the market has shown us that there is a demand there for that, and that really helps us out in planning what stuff there is for new projects, not just deciding what gets reran, but for new stuff too. It gives us a lot of good influence on that, and so that's why we tell you, please put in a pre-order or place an order. It gives us an idea as to what customers want, because people can fill up our suggestion portal with I want this SP Pacific, or I want this Boston and Albany Berkshire. Okay, great. Well, then can we get more people that are going to be on board with that too? Like it's just a matter of sales, but there is a lot of demand for other stuff too that we'd like to get to, but it's all kind of a risk. Like I was saying, we put a lot of money into making sure these models are really well done, and when they don't do that well, then it just tells us that maybe the market isn't strong enough for this one at the moment, and maybe we'd have to revisit it at another time. But that's kind of the short answer, or the I guess no more the long answer to his question.
Yeah, well, and I would add to that too that in this day and age, there's such a wealth of information. I mean, this is not. Speaking
Oh
of
yeah,
June
absolutely.
1957 of Model Railroader, this is not June 57 of Model Railroader, where all you had to go on, given the mind you had less products to choose from, but you also only had to go on what limited word of mouth you could get from your local hobby shop as far as
Hmm.
if something was good, if a certain manufacturer was reputable, but usually just if their stuff was quality or not. I mean, it's
Yeah,
interesting how many, especially when you navigate the used brass market, how many times it's like, well, those were notoriously bad runners, but it's like that came through decades of knowing that those were notoriously bad or
yeah,
particularly good runners, as the case may be. Nowadays, it's like, I mean, you do have to sort through what's worthwhile information, what isn't. But you've got enough YouTube reviewers, you've got enough publications. You could probably get that information that you need. Now I need to remember why I went on this tangent about information. Oh, well, as far as like, yeah, you're trying to sell a product, but also at the same time, it's like, people, it's very, for entities that have been around the block several years like you guys have, to see what the track record is as far as the quality and talk to
hmm
people before you're making that decision. Um, that yeah, it's like if something's of interest, um, you have enough information to work with before you go for it, so it's not like completely flying blind as to whether or not the quality is going to be good.
yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. Jimmy Lambert. That makes three of us who want to see an M. And Norfolk and Western M class. Okay, yes, and probably not just three. Um,
I'm sure there's more.
yes, Allison Chains, clever name. Boston and Maine P4 Pacific's like 3713, the Constitution, or
Oh, another
3718.
Steamtown,
Yeah, or
right? Isn't
well,
that the one at Steamtown?
that is the one. Although they
Yeah.
went deep into B&M by then saying or 3718 Ye Salem Witch,
Oh
which
wow.
is not at Steamtown. So that's
Yeah.
pulling out the deep cut reference.
Yeah, well, like I was saying earlier, everything is on the on our radar of stuff we want to do. Usually, what helps expedite that is if we get a lot of product suggestions. I saw somebody asking about 1522. That was one in particular that we were getting a lot of requests about before, and when I was in St. Louis for the RPM meet, um, bosses were like, "Hey, why don't you go to the museum as a work trip?" Air quotes, and go
I
ahead
think I
and
saw
take
photos
some.
from that work trip. Yes.
Yeah, so that was a fun work trip. That was a fun side trip to get the chance to go there, and I was very thankful. One of the volunteers at the museum um, saw that I had a Broadway shirt on and was asking me about what I was doing, and then he eventually let me go see 1522 up close. So I got some really good shots of it for our designers, and then I also got um, some good shots of the daylight 44, excuse me, the forgotten daylight, I guess you could say 4460, which is also located in the back and got some good detailed shots. And that'll be, I know, a future plan for us too, as the GS6. But 1522 is on our radar. It's going to most likely be a brass hybrid. Just because, again, as I was mentioning earlier in the the live stream, that the parts for creating that locomotive, especially when you look at the 1520 through 1529. There's a lot of details on that later run of the mountains that aren't on um, the earlier sides of it. There's the twin tubes at the top of the locomotive aren't found on the earlier one. One of them actually was streamlined. 1503 was streamlined, and they had different shrouding and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different things there that make that project more easier for us to do as a hybrid, just because again the details are more readily available. But I know people have been asking for 1522. We got a lot of requests for it, and that kind of helped expedite it because we not only got a lot of product suggestion or requests for that in our product suggestion portal, but I probably had to guess maybe 80% of the people that walked up to me at the St. Louis RPME were asking about if we were going to make 1522. and that was enough to convince the bosses to be like, hey, maybe we should go ahead and pursue that. So that's in the design queue for the designers right now. I don't have a timeline as to when we'll announce it or when we plan to release it by any chance, but it's on our radar. It'll come. Um, if I had to guess, probably within the next 2-3 years we could see it. I really don't know. It just, there's a lot of variables that go into that, and we got a lot of other stuff in the pipeline ahead of that. So just be patient. It's coming, I promise. And the nice part too is that we actually, we talk about the lengths we go through for these models. We actually reached out to Don Worth. Don was the chief mechanical officer, and he also was the engineer of 1522. And he provided us with literally all of the original drawings of the model. So the dimensions will be accurate.
Yep.
The details on the roof, the tender, every single aspect of that locomotive will be accurate. And Don has been very, very gracious in answering our questions about it and information about the locomotive itself and all that stuff. So the model will be really, really awesome. So just stay patient with us, and I promise you we'll have that coming out soon at some point.
Excellent. Let's see. Virgo Drusky asks, will there be observation/business cars in N scale to go with the P70s? And tell you what, since we're, I'm gonna rest my brain a bit and restart the music. So while you answer that, I'm gonna bring up the some of the and we can talk a little bit some of those renders you sent me.
Yeah, so if you go on our website, first off, if you ever want to see like what we're working on, I really encourage you to go and sign up for our emails. Not only will you get new product suggestions, but you get emailed our monthly newsletter, which gets sent out at the end of the month. So the August one actually got sent out yesterday, or no, I'm sorry, 2 days ago. So we were actually really excited about that. We had it sent out on Tuesday, where we announced the bull moose. We shared some fun stuff like in the news. About stuff that's going on. We remind people of order deadlines. We share stuff about samples that come in. We share the renders of stuff. Like if you really want to see some really detailed photos and renders of our upcoming bull moose models, especially with all the piping and the feed water heaters and stuff like that, you got to check out the newsletter. It's on our website, broadway-limited.com. If you scroll down past the giant photo and buttons for the bull moose, you'll see the latest from BLI. And just click on the Broadway flyer, and there's a lot of stuff there. But in the flyer, last month, we teased the Jeep 30s coming for N scale. We also teased the PRR observation cars for N scale. So the Z74s will be coming. The Kennefic cars will also be coming to N scale later on this year, or not this year. I'm sorry, later on next year. In terms of like when the designs will be complete, we don't have an announcement date set on those yet. But those will be coming out in the near future too. So yes, the passenger cars will be coming. Same with the PB70s. Those will be coming too. So those will go perfect with your P70s that you may have. Yeah, there you go. There's the renders of the N scale observation cars.
Yeah, so we've got the N scale obs here, both with the original Clear Story as well as the bubble. Which I'm so glad you're doing the bubble, because I feel like the passenger car market is so full of just the Clear Story, but I like the rebuilds and the bubble roofs.
Yeah, and the cool part about that is with the bubble roofs, and not only just that, but with the underbody details, is that like we did with the HO scale version of these cars, we've got era specific details on these. So you'll kind of notice that the bottom part there, I didn't know this. I'm not a Penzi modeler. I'm a Santa Fe guy through and through, but those compartments, like the AC was actually like literally just put ice blocks, I guess, in there.
Yep.
And those were really cool to see and learn about. But those cars will have road specific details. They'll be lit as well. I don't know the details in terms of like how you'll be able to change the lighting specs on our HO scale models. If you go on our YouTube channel, we made a video about how for our HO scale business cars, you can actually control the brightness of the interior of your business car. So if it's if it's a little too bright at nighttime and you want to turn down the lights, you can actually place your finger on top of the roof over one of the sensors, and it'll actually dim the light and maintain it at that dimness for you. Or if you want to make it brighter, you could tap it and hold it, and it'll make it brighter for you. So there's a lot of cool little things we're doing in the HO scale versions. We haven't gotten to that point for the N scale ones yet, but the details will for sure be there when we get to that point.
Something else. So those were really cool to see, and I've been following the development of that with excited. This thing, this thing is nuts.
Isn't it? It's really kind of cool looking though. It's one of those things where you almost really don't see it to believe it, but like the two 10-10-2s, the 3000, those are one of a kind for Santa Fe. I think they ended up rebuilding that to 2-10-2, if I'm not mistaken, because it just didn't work out for them. But I guess that you could say that's Santa Fe's kind of version of a bull moose, but I don't know, since UP kind of claimed the bull moose name, I don't know what else there would be to add of a nickname for those ones. But I personally like not only just the articulation or the multiple cylinders and stuff, but I think the tender looks really cool. This is a little bit too old, or in terms of steam wise, too old. I usually model more closer towards like the late 80s, early 90s for Santa Fe, but that it just looks really cool. I'm still debating if I'll get one or not yet when we announce it. But again, we work with the Santa Fe Historical Society on those. They gave us the drawings and stuff. So we will have a lot of cool stuff for that model when we announce it in HO. And that's also a brass hybrid. And you look at all the color code parts, like for example, the very light blue, that's the brass of the boiler and the cab and the tender shell. The white-ish areas, those are plastic parts. So you'll see like, the cylinders and the pipe and that sort of stuff. The chassis is going to be die-cast metal. And then, of course, you got the wheels that are metal as well. But then all the other orange parts that you see there, those are going to be handcrafted brass parts that, again, are cheaper for us to make and to put onto the model, because if we were to do this all in die-cast, believe it or not, again, the MSRP would be way higher on this model than it would be planned already, and it's just easier for us to do it that way. But part of the benefit of this hybrid is that if this was an all brass model, it would be right in the brass market. But adding some of these plastic parts like the trucks, the cylinders, the headlight casing, that sort of stuff, it allows us to keep the costs down for customers. So you're getting a really high quality, essentially nearly all brass model, but not in the brass aftermarket where you're going to be paying close to a couple $1,000s maybe for it. You're going to get it for maybe $799.99, $899.99 MSRP, and then you go through your dealer and most dealers will sell that at about 20% off the MSRP. So you'll get it at a really, really good price for a really high quality model.
I'm in love with that. And then B6, as we've been talking about and as we'll be starting to play with soon, just a cute little thing that I'm guessing this is an 18 min radius.
Correct. Yeah, 18-inch minimum radius, and the ones that you see there, those are early renders. So when we first announced the model, that was the renders that came with it, and you'll notice actually the eccentric crank on the locomotive is actually incorrect, but we've corrected that. So again, when you look at some of these renders and you want to point out a detail that's wrong, I guarantee that we've already found it, but the details and stuff are always subject to change. So when you're looking at a lot of those, running gear parts and the coal bunker and that sort of stuff, I guarantee we've already handled it and looked it over and everything. So if you do see some stuff that's wrong, I could probably tell you that we've already fixed it. But some people have asked us, why haven't we done the one that's at Strasbourg? We were talking about Strasbourg earlier. Well, the Strasbourg model, actually, even though it is a B6 SB, there are several big differences with the Strasbourg model than you would see here. Strasbourg 1670, it actually has a different coal bunker type, if you actually look at that. And then also the headlight style on it is also slightly different in terms of like the mountain stuff on it. I know that they've also had some parts that are missing. It's like it's got none of the shrouding on the side there. But nonetheless, though, it could be an option for a future model. But for one that we're doing a first run of, we want to make sure that it can be kind of as consistent as possible for the tooling. And then you look at the bull mooses here. It's Jesus, those things look so cool too. But nonetheless, it gets you excited for those models for sure.
The bull moose shows how little I know about Union Pacific, because I'd never even heard of this as a thing.
Really? So
I am today years old, or not to you said this a little while ago, but it was your announcement that let me know that the bull mooses were even a thing. I had no idea.
Yeah, and we currently have a bet at the office for which version will sell better than the others: the pre-1944 one with all the piping and stuff on the side, or the post-1944 one that kind of looks like an early Challenger with the high-mounted headlight and the piping on the front there. We're having a bet at the office as to which one might do better. I'm on post-1944 for me personally. I think those look really cool. And again, we go through a lot of big lengths for those. The UP Historical Society helped us out tremendously with those. And again, brass hybrid model, it's going to have a lot of pulling power. Our big boys and challengers that we made in the past already have good pulling power. This is going to be right up there with it. All the details from the front of the locomotive, the fantasy scheme, the two-tone gray, to the the tender, all that stuff are just gorgeous looking. And it's tough to look at these and not think that it's the actual model, or maybe it's something that you could find in trains. but yeah, nonetheless, those are our designs and everything, and it's kind of gives people a good opportunity to see what it looks like before it comes out, and that's a heck of a way to not only just up our advertising game, but it gives customers the opportunity to see what it looks like. You don't want to see a 2D paint of or 2D artwork. You want to see the actual thing. You want to be able to hold it. Well, you can't hold it, but it comes to the next best thing of seeing all the details, and you can zoom in. The photos are so clear that you can zoom in and see all of that stuff from the piping and everything. Yeah, beautiful models coming out.
Although if, you can't hold it yet, although if you guys make it to Amherst or one of the various trade shows that that Broadway's at, you might be able to. Well, I'll talk about this once we go back to stream. I want to make sure we covered everything. The E units, and scale
unit,
classy.
Specific details on those too. Great diesels, new sounds for those, and of course we've gone really big lengths. Those have been really, really popular. And actually, if you haven't done so already, you better place a pre-order online, because the order deadline was today for those. So make sure that you go ahead and order those if you haven't done so already. Otherwise, you can still place an order after the deadline. So you could theoretically place an order tomorrow, but we give the final count to the factory tomorrow morning once all the orders come in from the end of the day today. And for us, we do make some extras, but it comes on a first come, first served basis. So again, if you haven't done so already, please place your pre-order in. It's the best way to reserve a model that you want. In most places, you'll maybe have to put maybe 10% down as a little bit of a deposit to reserve it. Or I know Train World, I think, still has free pre-orders. So go ahead and make sure that you get those in, and make sure that you're all set to go, because N Scalers, we're making a lot of great stuff for you guys, man. I'm telling you, those E units are going to be fantastic.
They look like it. Yes, the 3751 in N scale.
Yeah, those two, like I said earlier, we're getting sounds recorded just off of it. Aiden, our sound engineer, is going to Los Angeles in the coming weeks. I think it's actually he's going to be going when it's going to Los Angeles Union Station for that rail safety event. I believe that's when he's planning on going there. But yeah, those are going to be really, really popular too. Those have been selling really well so far, and I know a lot of guys who are wanting to see more N scale steam. Well, if you want to see 2926 come to N scale, buy the 3751. Let us know that you want it by placing in a pre-order. I did see somebody ask about 2926, and we are doing that for HO. We're going to start off with that in HO. But if you want 2926 in N scale, buy the heck out of these Santa Fe Northerns, man. They're going to be great.
Well, and it strikes me too with some of these things where, once they're gone, they're gone. Even if you may not want it in the long run, get it,
Yeah.
flip it on. They announced 2926, flip it on eBay, and then get yourself 2926.
Yeah, and even more so, like I said, if stuff sells really well in HO, it most likely comes to N scale. So um, even if you maybe don't like the 3751 but want the 2926, tell your friends in HO to buy it. We're recording the sounds from it, and we're working with that group too, the New Mexico Rail Heritage Group, because they provided us with a lot of drawings and details. Of the locomotive, and they were so great to work with and getting to record the sounds of the 2926. So we're going to really go the extra mile on that in HO. And I tell you what, man, those are going to be really, really well done in HO and N scale if it comes to it eventually. But yeah, just make sure you get your orders in, folks. I can't stress that enough, because it really does help us, but it also helps you in making sure that, if you want a different version of a locomotive, there's going to be a second run, that sort of thing. you know Helps us out for sure.
Exactly. Now I'm going to switch us back to the scene, and you can see what I've done. While Curtis has been walking us through some of these new renders. So we are good enough for the sake of the play test. I went ahead and put in the fascia just to kind of border it, and later I'll be adding my dig holes, my floor, and all those kind of details. I've got this harbor scene that I should make that water a little
That
bit
looks awesome.
darker. Thank you. Gonna make that water a little bit darker. I need to acknowledge my wife who has commented with red. I think she's saying red house. Oh, okay. And then I think she's saying she wants a red house. I can try to put a red house in
Oh.
somewhere. But her other thing, her other question: do you have a box car that makes sounds?
Oh,
I think she's
so
it's sort of like the stock car. Like, do you have a? I
we
guess
haven't
do you
done
have? Yeah,
yeah,
go
we
for it.
haven't done a box car version yet. But the stock cars, the N scale stock cars with all the different, like, cow, pig, all that stuff, those have been fun. And then the holiday themed ones too have been really popular. Halloween is coming up. We made, like, a spooky N scale stock car sounds that, with ghost goblins, and I think there's even like that, like, um if you think of like Disney Haunted Mansion, like organ sound playing, that sort of thing. I think there's a variety. There's got to be, I think, 10 or 12 different sounds of that on there. It's a lot, but it's really cool. Um, Definitely, we'll look into Bethany. Yeah, we'll look into making some sound box cars for sure. I think sound cars are kind of cool, personally. I always wanted to look to doing that. I have a Walthers El Capitan um, passenger set, along with some BLIF units, and I've always wanted to put some like passenger car sounds or something like that in the cars that kind of like faintly play in the background as it's going down the track. But that's a whole project within itself that I'm not not ready to tackle just yet.
Yeah, it's super fun. And so when when we were playtesting the Reading T1 and the stuff that was featured in the last Build It with Broadway with the cryogenic tankers
Yeah.
and the stock cars. She said that she gave the stock cars top points. She gave the stock cars more points than the T1, which she also thought was good, but she adored the stock cars. So
She didn't like the T1 with
no,
smoke. She liked the
she
stock
did
cars more.
she did like the T1. She liked everything. But in terms of like favorites, the
Yeah.
stock cars. Oh, you should have seen her face when she realized they made noises. And then when you put the little magnet next to you put the magnet next to the to adjust the volume and so forth, and you hear
Yeah. Yeah.
that voice going level 1,
Yeah.
level 2. Oh, she was in seventh heaven over that. That was super. That was super funny. So yes, you hit it out of the ballpark with with the stock cars. So
Good.
yes,
Good. Good.
I
Good.
think she's saying just like wherever you can find an excuse to put a sound in a thing, do the thing.
Do it.
Yeah,
Do it.
that's what
All
I
right.
interpreted that to be. Um, so for that perspective of things, um, let's see. What else do I want to do before? Oh, I want to choose a bridge model to put over for that canal, and then I think I'll be good to do our play testing. Um, so let's see. We
I did
addressed.
see somebody say earlier that they did want you to challenge approach medium
Oh,
in the
good.
chat
Okay,
earlier.
we'll make it
So
happen.
yeah, I think that's gonna have to happen.
I'll be honest with you guys. I want it to happen. Part of it is I have this idea of like, I mean, it'd be fun to just do. I have this idea of like, I should reveal how crazy I wanted to get. Getting a little crazy and involving like voting, like for like
Oh,
some kind of voting component, um, and doing it for some kind of collective cause, like for nonprofits or something. I don't yet know what that looks like, but if you guys have ideas, let me know because I've been wanting to do it. Um, it's just a matter of like putting a few pieces together in my head of like what serves as the spark for it. Other than
yeah.
it would be cool, but it would be cool. So, yes, if you want to see it, I'm glad you want to see it happen. Um, I'll do what I can to continue to brainstorm on that front, but very open to your ideas as well as like what like if it, for a prompt or nature of the challenge, or if there's some way we could like make a fundraiser for some nonprofit out of it. Open to suggestions on that front.
That'd be cool. I've already gotten, as I've been on the stream, I've literally have gotten 12 new product suggestions into my email inbox. So thanks to your chat for stocking my inbox with some more stuff. I see some business cars. I see the Mastodon in there. Dang.
Well,
Like I said, I'll get to it on Tuesday after
yep.
the weekend.
So you guys are doing good work. You good job, guys, and we'll see what comes of it. Because honestly, like that's and then do once it comes out, make sure you get your pre-order in.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. And I gotta wrap. I gotta focus on this for 1 minute before I do other questions and things. This I'm thinking Girder. This is going to be really obtuse, but in season 3 of Thomas and Friends, there's a set that takes place in a harbor that has like a little lift bridgey kind of thing, and it's not exactly realistic, but it's kind of what I want. Oh, phew.
It's a model railroad. It's your thing. It's your fun. You know.
I wonder if I could even find that. I do have some of that. I think that's oh yes, Canal Drawbridge. Yeah, unfortunately, it's designed for a straight section, but that's the exact. This is like literally the exact bridge. Like somebody once, many moons ago, did. Well, it's transy. We'll make it work, and then I'll finesse it later because I wanna keep our show going. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add in a couple of spline points to here and here. Delete that. Need to lower the bridge down to a zero. That actually, uh, that's not a half bad fit for being a very just sporadic or spur of the moment kind of thing. Then we take a
Yeah,
track.
that doesn't look too bad at all. Almost, I'm originally from Chicago, so it kind of
Oh,
vaguely
yep.
reminds me of the drawbridges that used to cross over the Chicago River. It's funny. I was going down a little memory lane watching the Pentrex video, today's Chicago Railroads, and seeing how it was back in like 1991 or whenever that was that they filmed that there. But yeah, that's kind of what it reminds me of, a very small version of that.
Dang. I like that I had this random Thomas thought and it led to the actual bridge. Because, yeah, years ago, folks did the island of Sodor. They didn't finish the whole thing, but they did like half of the island of Sodor as you've seen it on TV. And
Mm-hmm.
these are like the Thomas modelers of this game are nuts. Like their modeling skills are off the charts, and so they do these really incredibly accurate things. Like this is the bridge from season
Yeah.
three's canal set. So yes, Um, it's, now I've got like 15 radius curves as opposed to 18, but Train Z won't care, and so we won't either for the moment. So I'm gonna set ourselves up for some play. If you guys have other questions you want to submit for Curtis, be sure to do so. Appreciate you joining us tonight, um, and if you want to stick around while I split my mind between conversation and staging equipment, then you're more to do so. Because it's great to. I love having company. Well, I mean, you guys who are in the text are also company, but I love having various forms of company. Um,
While you're doing your thing, I saw a question earlier that I could answer really quick. Somebody asked, Mr. Railyard was asking if there's any chance we're going to do European model trains. Um, that's a good question. I don't know if we would for sure get to it or not. There's a lot of European modelers or European manufacturers out there. We actually share a factory with a European manufacturer. So for us, I would say probably not, because it's kind of it's a little respecting that we kind of will stick to our guns, but also breaking into a new market is frankly just very difficult. We were talking about trying to break into O scale. Well, trying to break into something like a making like maybe a Flying Scotsman, that's a lot of extra details and stuff, and a lot of people don't realize that British steam is typically much smaller than American steam in terms of like the dimensions of everything. um so it might be a little bit more difficult for us to do that. But is it a possibility? Yeah, I would say it's probably a possibility at some point, but is it worth it for us right now? Probably not. um just because it's like I said earlier, it's a big cost factor for us. So um probably not right now, but possibly in the future.
let's see. Mr. Ailier, it's also asking, can I suggest locomotives or cars to run on the route? Well, Loco, we've got to take care of at the B6. If you want to see a particular type of freight car, I'm up to suggestions on that front. Um, yeah, Steam Channel's also saying, love to see you guys get into O scale. I mean,
Yeah,
the
Chris, I would too. I would love to see us get into it as well, but it's very tough to get into that. And um for many of the reasons like I mentioned earlier, with the different power supply stuff and everything like that, um that would be very tough for us to break into. What I would love to see us try it, though. I really would. But that would be a pretty sizable investment for us, is what I would assume.
that makes me think though, the accessory front, the water tower,
Yeah.
the animated water tower. Um, how did that come about? And do you see doing more accessories like that are kind of in the spirit of Lionel and the spirit of those good old days of pushing the button and having the guy pop out of the building, but feel like they aren't unrealistic and that you can fit into a quote unquote proper train layout.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think for us, it's the accessories route, at least for O scale, is probably more along our realm of possibilities. Maybe not. Maybe we would make a building, or like an industry or something like that. That kind of like if you think of like Menards, what they're doing for O scale, and some of the buildings and stuff that you can place on your railroad and stuff like that. I would maybe assume that probably would be more maybe along our lines for that. Um, the animated water tower stuff for O scale, we've done that for all scales. We've done that for HO, we've done that for N, and we've done it for O. Um, if you're an O scale and you're looking for an extra one, you could try contacting our parts department and service department. Um, they might have one or two extras that they might be able to sell you. I really don't know though. You'd have to call them and ask. But the variety of stuff is there for you for sure. But the rolling stock thing I think could also be a possibility for us to do, um, to break into O scale with. But locomotive wise though, there's a lot of factors that go into that. But the accessories in the rolling stock though is definitely something I could see us doing. Is it in the plans right now? No. Could it be in the future? Yeah, it probably could be at some point. It's just a matter of timing for us as to when is the right time to go ahead and decide to make something like that. That's what it is for us when it comes to that. A lot of people have also asked us about like narrow gauge stuff like ON30.
Mm.
We've tried to break into that market because we got asked about that a lot, and we announced that one that we were going to do a pre-order on, and we just couldn't get the orders to justify really breaking into that. So unfortunately, we haven't really tried it since. Um, could it be a possibility? Maybe. Um, but the narrow gauge market, at least for us, the only group of people, the only time we ever get asked about making ON30 stuff is when we go to the Rocky Mountain Train Show in Denver, and they will ask us if we're going to try to do ON30, and it breaks my heart to tell them no because we really are probably not going to do it at some point. But it's like I said, it could be a possibility. We just don't have the time, and unless the market demands for it, like maybe a bunch of fans of the Durango and Silverton want us to make it, make a model of a certain engine and maybe some passenger cars, then we could look into that. But for the time being, not so much for us, unfortunately.
Yeah, I wish that it was more easily accessible. Not, and I don't say that just to guilt trip you of like you're not doing it, but in the sense of like you look at what is being made, especially from a 009 standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
from companies like Kato and Pico
Yeah.
for the British market. There's more agreed upon, like this is a thing to model there in the sense
Mm-hmm.
of you've got the Festiniog and the Talclin and some of these things that there's more of a kind of condensed fandom around that. And
Yeah.
you could probably argue, well, isn't there that for the Colorado narrow gauge? Maybe. I'm not a business expert, I can't say.
Yeah.
But it seems to me clearly there's a reason why they're able to cater to that, um, in a way that nobody's been able to kind of figure out how to make Colorado narrow gauge work from a kind of mass appeal. Let alone all that the cries for EBT stuff, which
Oh, I was just gonna go there. EBT is another one that we get asked about every once in a
yep.
while. I personally love the EBT and like the Durango and Silverton and that stuff. I think those are such cool places. Both places are on my train's bucket list of places I want to go visit and explore and that sort of stuff. Um, I mean, there really is a lot of stuff I would love for us to do, but it's not worth it if we can maybe sell a couple hundred of one particular item, and when we really need to, in order to make cost to make it a valuable project, we need to sell a couple thousand, you know um not of each SKU, but in terms of um total number of units to be made. That's where it gets tough for us, is to justify those costs and getting into that. um the East Broad Top in particular, I think, would be such a fun project, especially with their resurrection, and how their volunteers are working so hard on getting you know, that railroad back up and running and getting to the point where it is today. Um, and of course, the Durango and Silverton is just a legendary, model railroad, or not model railroad, a legendary tourist railroad that a lot of people, I'm sure, would love to have, on their roster at some point, or even just to even make I remember seeing a in Model Railroader at some point. Um, Somebody had a layout of the tourist operation, um, of that. I don't remember what issue it was or anything like that, but I remember that being there and somebody doing that. I think maybe it was at Train Sim Classic. Was it maybe G Tracks that
Yes, yeah,
made? Yeah,
that was Train Sim Classic back in the day,
yeah,
known as Railworks, that did the
yeah. That's right. Yeah,
yeah, but the K27.
yeah, yeah. But hey, I really wish that there was a stronger, you know, market for those who want to do it. Love the people that do it. Those are some of the coolest modelers. I end up finding how much they can cram into a space like that. I love watching the layouts at the Rocky Mountain Train Show because a lot of those guys have those dual gauge stuff going on, and they just look so cool. And the little details that they go into that just makes it look so cool from a modeler's perspective and just an admirer's perspective of watching their layout at work. It's really neat to see that.
Millennial Modeler. I own both the BLI animated water tower and sound stock cars in N scale. They're absolutely wonderful products that stand out from my other more traditional equipment on my layout.
Yeah, and that's the fun part, like that's one thing that a lot of customers will sometimes say is like, oh well, it's cool that you're doing that, but it's not really prototypical, like especially the fantasy scheme stuff. But it's your model railroad. It's a hobby. If you're going to have fun with it, have fun with it. Enjoy it. You can collect what you want to collect, and you can, build what you want to build. And if if you want to add an animated water tower, or heck, even we've come out with Lightning and Thunder, where we've got like an actual like subwoofer system where you can actually press the button and you hear like the lightning and thunder flash, and you can kind of get creative. There's a guy that we work with, Jimmy from the, if you look up DIY and Digital Model Railroad, he actually did a really cool scene where he took one of our layout lightning storms and meshed it with some clouds, and he made a really cool scene where he put the this modular N scale layout that he did, and he's got this really cool thunderstorm scene in one part of his layout there. And he's just he's very intuitive on a lot of those different aspects of model railroading, from scenery to working with Arduinos and all that stuff. He's really cool to check out if you're looking for some inspiration for that stuff. But that's, when we're talking about, having its, standout stuff, like that's the fun of it. Rolling Thunder is another one where we've got such cool, subwoofer speakers that, you can feel the rumble of the B6 or of the bull moose or whatever as it passes your location, and you feel the bass of the whistle blowing, and it's almost like you're standing trackside. It's really cool, and it's really unique, and it just adds so much cool realism to what's otherwise, I mean, when you think about the last 25, 30 years before sound engines were kind of a mainstay, you would just kind of be sitting in your basement kind of quiet, and you would just kind of watch the trains run by if you're a HO scaler, or whatever. But to have that now as a regular thing for HO&M, where you get the sound and then you can get the subwoofer bass of the engine as it crosses a crossing, and you're blowing the whistle for it, and that sort of thing. It's fun, and that's what makes this hobby the greatest hobby in the world, is that it's fun. You can do so many different things with it.
Sound design is something that I'm interested in exploring with my own layout with Greenfield Village, because it's not super big. It's only 2.5 by 5.5. But one of my goals is on my next visit to the Henry Ford Museum to bring a sound recorder with me and just get ambient sound from different places, and then splice it together into like a 30-minute loop, so that when I'm playing with my layout, I can turn on that and have that as background sounds to add that immersion of feeling like, oh, there's people walking around, and you hear an occasional plane go overhead or whatever the case may be. That just adds that Model Ts passing by, things like that.
Yeah, and I mean, we do the same thing with our like when you think about like our diesels and stuff. When you press the startup button, like on a Jeep 20 or Jeep 30 model of ours, you hear the footsteps on the gravel as it's walking up to the locomotive. You hear the hatches of the door opening as the engineer or conductors starting up the locomotive for the day, and then you go through the whole startup sound sequence and all that stuff. You talk about the sound water towers. When it's kind of funny when Ken Silvestri and I go to shows, we get a wide range of people asking us about stuff. Well, one guy in particular asked us or said to us that he claimed to know what voice we used for the sound water towers, and we both kind of looked at each other and we're like, okay. And we both know it was our, a coworker of ours. His name is Joe Goddard. He's actually our IT guy and former sound engineer.
Hmm.
Um, his cousin was the one that voiced it for us. But this guy that was at one of the shows we were at was convinced that we somehow had the budget to hire Tom Hanks to voice the water tower. So when you have the water quote unquote overflowing, you hear him go, "Stop, stop! You're overflowing it." So he thought that we hired Tom Hanks to to do that, which was not the case. We don't have the budget to hire Tom Hanks for that sort of stuff, but it's funny nonetheless, and it's kind of fun to have that imagination.
Yeah, no, that yay for having the kind of Railroad Polar Express tie-in, even if it was
Yeah.
completely accidental. And yeah, the voices and things like that. I mean, there's a fun to that. I having one of the things that I enjoyed exploring when you guys sent me the T1, and I have it on the SD45 as well. Um, is these scenes like a lumberyard scene or an industrial scene
Yeah.
for these locomotives because growing up I my dad and I did a lot of O scale, a lot of MTH, and MTH
Yeah.
has these scenes that play out with their DCS system, which I presume they still do, and I think Lionel eventually got in on that too. But where it's like a little story of something happening, um,
Hmm.
and I like that that's something kind of that you've not brought back because I don't know that it ever went away on the O scale front, but that exists for these Asia products that, for those who feel like, oh, it's too unrealistic, you could just ignore it. But for those who want a little bit of life and that kind of the party trick of like you have guests over who aren't going to care about photorealism or whatever, and you could just have throw those conversations on and watch people's reactions. That's fun.
Yeah. I remember when my dad was a big Burlington fan. Actually, she still is a big CB&Q fan. Um, our home layout growing up, we would have people come over all the time, and my dad had a Broadway Limited California Zephyr set, and it would turn off the lights, and you see all the lights lighting up, and it's like you're picturing the train going through through the fields of Omaha, Nebraska, or whatever, in the middle of the night as it's on its way to Denver before it heads over the Rocky Mountains, and seeing all of that um, kind of imagination again, going back to that, if you will, about how just so cool it is to see and what you can replicate in a model form versus what you see in real life now. And unfortunately, we don't see the California Zephyr as it was in the 50s, today, with Amtrak taking over and everything. But it's still, a really cool thing to see when you can get um, the thing down in a model form. Um, I have a personal like whiteboard in my office that I have a list of probably, oh gosh, maybe 15 different steam locomotives that I would like us to make, and I have even more, or I have some diesels um, and rolling stock pieces as well. Thankfully, a few of my suggestions have gone into that phase. 1522 was on my board. The Union Pacific business cars was on my board. Um, I was also looking at. I want us to do GS6s. That's also on our board at some point, or that was on my board at some point. And then the P8 Pacifics was on my board for Southern Pacific. ACL R1s, Southern PS4s. One engine I would think would, I don't know how well it would sell, but I personally think it's really cool, and I think I've come to like the engine a lot since I've been playing Railroader a lot
Hmm.
recently. Has been the Big Emmas. Um, those engines in particular, I think, are so cool looking, and I know a lot of guys, LNN guys, have been asking for those for years. I might just get one unlettered and letter it for my my Railroader railroad just for the heck of it, just to have it, because I think that'd be really cool to have. But nonetheless, there's a lot of different ideas that are, working in this industry is fun because you can come up with a lot of ideas of things that you want to see make. But unfortunately, the downfall is the realistic part of, we are a business. Can we sell X many of models? Um, so there's ups and downs to it, but it's a lot of fun though. Sorry, I'm kind of rambling here, but I just thought it was kind of weird to tie that all in, or neat to tie that all into what we've been talking about the whole evening.
No, 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 that's good. And usually I'm the one rambling just straight. So your rambles can be offset by my rambles. We could have some Reading rambles in there. We're good.
There we go. Perfect.
So a few points I want to pick up on. First, the Cal Zephyr. Add that to the list of things that I'd love to see you do another run of at some point.
Yeah, it's on my board too. Um, I the Zephyr in particular was a train that I would love us to do, but the problem is the tooling costs.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the toolings for that anymore because we use the heck out of those toolings. We probably did 4 or 5, maybe 6 runs of those Cal Zephyr cars.
Oh wow!
All from the you got the Burlington version, the Rio Grande version, the Western Pacific version. You got the Wabash Bluebird, scheme that we did. We got the early Amtrak ones. We did so many different runs of those. That engine was so popular, or excuse me, that train was so popular. When we made that train, that entire train set, 10, 15, however many years ago, actually probably longer than that, 15, 20 years ago, the tooling cost for that back then was, about $1 million for the entire 13 car train, each with every single details, the lights, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, we were talking earlier about the rising costs of everything. I would imagine that it would probably cost, one, a lot more, but also two, the end result is that customers would be paying more for those cars. And maybe there is a market for that now because, the other business cars we've done so far have done really well enough that, maybe that warrants that it can work out that way. Well, that's a cool angle. I like that angle.
By the, yep.
Yeah. I'll do it. Sorry, I got off track. But no pun intended. But the train itself is really expensive to tool, and a lot of people have asked us about the daylight cars too, because the daylight cars are really, really expensive to tool as well, especially the articulated chair cars. Those are also really expensive to tool, and frankly, they were kind of a little bit of a servicing nightmare because the drawbars kept snapping on people. I have the full train, and I still run into problems where I'm like, gosh, I want us to remake them because they make these better, but I just don't know how much, it would cost us to redesign everything again. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt, but anyways, again, I'm going off track here, but bottom line is the Zephyr cars, as much as I'd love for us to do it again, I just don't think it's realistic at this time for us to do it just because of how costly everything is. And, like I said, if it was $1 million, 15-ish years ago to do it, I can't even imagine what it is now.
Yeah. There's when I interviewed Jason Schron from Rapido, I brought up their Canadian, as in the Canadian, and he said we were crazy to do that set.
Yeah, and that's the perfect example. Like, even though Jason loves the Canadian and everything, doing a full train like that, it's very costly. It's very costly. I mean, as you saw there from what Jason said to you, but anyways, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you as you were talking about that, but
no, you're good.
But yeah, it's how it's the reality of the situation, of everything we want, I can't even imagine the amount of money that Walthers has probably spent on the the Super Chief, the El Capitan, the Broadway Limited, the I think they've done the Capital Limited, the Cities trains. Think about all those named passenger trains that they're doing. Recently, the city of San Francisco is another one. I mean, they've invested a lot of money on those full length trains. I mean, it really is as tough it is because I know everybody loves streamliners, myself included. It's just very tough to justify the expenses involved with it.
Yep. Yeah, I certainly don't hold that against you in any way. I think it's one that I've come to appreciate more and more as time has gone on. And segue from that point you made to another point you made, I recently read a really great book on the California Zephyr by Carl Zimmerman. And if you could
Mm.
probably find it on eBay for $20. It's a history of the cows after he published it in 1972. Great book, great photos. I enjoyed that immensely. And another book recommendation, which will bring us to the Emmas, is Garbly Publishing just put out a book on the Emmas by Ron Flannery and others, experts in the LNN Steam side of things.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought a book about one kind of steam locomotive could be so fascinating, especially when it's not like a name brand engine like Big Boy. And
Yeah.
yet, the stories and the detail in that book about that one kind of that one kind of locomotive is astounding. So, to your point about how you'd love to see one, hopefully enough people read that book and decide, hey, that'd be a cool thing to have.
Yeah, yeah. I would. I like I said earlier, I would want one just because I wouldn't want specifically an LNN one, but I would decal it to match my railroader or my railroader locomotives. Geez, a little tongue twister for me there, um, but yeah, the LNN Big M's in general, I think are just kind of like when you talk about some of the most like really cool not only just looks but like in terms of pulling power and all that. I think the Big Emmas are pretty underrated in terms of
Yes.
like they're not really talked about a lot amongst people who are rail fans and everything like that. They're very well known for LNN fans, but if they're they don't have the as big of a spotlight on them as a Big Boy would, or a Challenger, or a Great Northern 2880 Mallet, or anything like that. Very under the radar locomotive, very cool locomotive still, regardless. But yeah, those Big Emmas are definitely really cool. I just picked up a couple of books recently. Like I said, I modeled Santa Fe in the late 80s, early 90s. And I picked up a couple of books recently about the power that Santa Fe had in terms of their diesels and stuff. And somehow some of them had Kodachromes until like the 1990s, early 1990s, before the merger with the BN. And you think about when that whole shouldn't paint so fast fiasco happened with them, and how long those locomotives still were painted on in Kodachrome scheme. I think it's just kind of funny to me that there's so many different history books and even like I was talking about Pentrex videos. For my birthday's next month, and I just a little birthday gift to myself. I bought 5 old Pentrex DVDs that some I grew up watching as a kid, but others I hadn't seen before. I got like the Santa Fe into LA, and the Pacific Surf Line, because I would, for my future model railroad, when I eventually want to build a model railroad, when I get a basement, because we can't have basements here in Florida. But when I do have a model railroad at some point, I want to model the region along the San Clemente Pier, where you got the beach and you got the oceans and stuff. I think that'd be such a cool scene.
Yep.
And it's cool to see Amtrak services. I just like Phase 3 Amtrak in particular. So watching like the Pepsi Can Dash 8s and the F40s, and the ex Metroliner cab cars that made their way out west after they were failed as EMUs. That's just so cool to me to see how it kind of all of that kind of gets repurposed away, especially in the 90s when the railroad business was back booming again after the 60s and 70s were kind of a big downfall for them.
Absolutely. Jimmy Lambert says, wrong comment. So, if I were looking to show the most support for small steam from BLI, which should I order? The B6SB or the 4-truck Shay? Before Curtis answers his perspective, I will say I've got a Class D Shay coming. So yes, that is my bias.
The Shays actually were almost completely sold out of the Shays. The Shays were really popular.
Great.
So I think that's a very good news. So it depends on which one you would use it more for, I guess. Jimmy, would you rather use the smaller steam, or would I mean I guess they're both small steam, but um, the B6 would be I think my vote for you, because I don't know if you like PRR, if you like SP or whatever, but there's a lot of options for us to go like 060, 080 wise, and the B6 order deadline we actually expanded that um, for the B6 because we wanted to make sure people were getting their orders in because we actually the B6 order deadline closed a couple of months ago, but we were still having customers reaching out to us and saying that they didn't get an order in and they wanted to get one you know placed, but can we get that um, order in? And we eventually decided, maybe we should just extend it a little bit and just see what see how many extra orders we can get because we're not opposed to having to extend it. We have a little bit of an unpopular reputation or things are a little bit delayed, and that part of it is for many different reasons, but mainly because we share a factory with two other manufacturers. But the B6, if you want it, if you order by September 20th, you'll get it guaranteed at delivery. And they come with smoke, and they're going to be arriving in May of next year. So you have time to save up. You've got time to work on make sure if you wanted to buy two of them, you can have enough time to save up to buy two of them. But the B6 in general, I think would be your vote. But again, I think it depends on what you model and what you want to make sure that you get your voice heard
on. Bringing it back to the layout for a little bit, I'm really loving this scene that we've got with the Liberty ship and the coal switching going on in the foreground. And this is the kind of thing. So I've actually I love micro layouts. I love the idea of micro layouts. I love some of the micro layouts I've seen, and I've thought of how fun it would be to do. There's a video on YouTube of I couldn't tell you what to search, but it has it's in Southampton Docks in the UK, and it's by the BBC. And there's shots of the Baldwin-built S100 switchers, as well as the famous E2s, aka the real-life Thomases. And they're switching underneath these big cranes, like you see here. And I've looked at that and thought, man, I'd love to do like a 4x1 that's just essentially an Inglenook, just like a tuning fork. You have a few sidings, you're just moving cars between them, but just the atmosphere of like being able to have your cars right next to a big ship with big cranes.
Yeah.
Something you could do a lot with a little. Have something that's big and towering, but doesn't actually take up a lot of floor space.
Yeah, and the other thing too about like dock scenes like that is that it always seems to be just a hubbub of activity. Like, you got workers, making sure that, things are strapped onto the pallets or whatever as they're getting loaded onto ships, all that sort of stuff. Carts and stuff moving around, moving materials and stuff. I always find those really fun, those fun scenes. My dad and I were actually part of a group where we were a part of a prototype modelers group, and one of the guys that we would go operate trains on had a Soo Line ore dock, and it had he scratch built this long bridge structure that probably was, no joke, probably 12 to 14 feet long, and basically you'd have crews that were running mine trains. So you'd go to the mines, you'd load up with iron ore or whatever, and then you take it down to the docks, and then one guy would be switching cars into the the quote unquote boat that was out on the barge. And it was also live loads, which is even more fun to operate because there was several stretches of the main line where it was 2 to 3% grades, and I think the biggest engine on the line was maybe a 210-2 or a 280 or something like that. And you had to make sure that you were operating your train safely because you derailed, you are gonna have to get out the vacuum cleaner to start sucking up some of those live little
Mm-hmm.
pellet loads that were all over the place that you spilled. Um, but yeah, I love dock scenes like that. It's so cool to see, and I love especially the ore docks, like the up in the UP of Michigan and Wisconsin and Minnesota. Those are so cool to see. Um, just if you ever get the chance to go up there, Nick, I don't know if you ever have or not,
I
but
have not,
um,
and very
yeah,
much want
there's
to.
Duluth is a very cool town to go check out from a railroading aspect. There's lots of cool stuff up there.
Yeah, I very much want to. At the Rail Yard, fans will know that way back in the day, I reviewed the Lake Superior and Ishpeming route for Microsoft Train Simulator. I've wanted to see that action for several years. And actually, behind the scenes, I've been working on a DM and IR themed Train Z layout that is
Oh, fun.
large. It's
Yeah,
large. It may be a while before it sees the light of day because I I see the part of the stream earlier where I was like, I've been out for a solid month, but I'd love to get that one done because it's big and DM and IR and big ore trains, big dock, all that
yeah,
kind of fun, and has this kind of thing going for it, a la what we're doing with the car ferry tonight, where um, you push like it's the sort of live staging, like your loads are immediate and empties are immediately positioned to be switched the other direction. Um,
yeah.
it does that with an ore dock in a way that is really clever.
Huh.
Too many track plans, too little time.
Do you have Yellowstone to haul all the ore cars?
No, we don't. Not in Trainsy. Not as of
You
now.
gotta get
So I
you gotta
have
get K
to.
and L trains on that.
Oh, poor Steve. He's got so many projects as it is. I
I'm
mean,
I'm still waiting for the 3751. As I saw that he put when he posted that up as a project a long time ago. I've been waiting on that for a while. I've been very patient, Steve. If you're watching, I've been very patient. I'm excited for it whenever you get to it.
yeah.
Um,
No, he knows it's long sought after. I talked to him about it not too long ago. So he's well aware that there is a large contingent of folks who are highly enthusiastic for that one to see the light of day.
yeah,
Yeah, we just need more Steves. We need to clone more Steves.
absolutely.
Kudos to Braden, the Confident Engine. Railway Roundabout. Yes. That's what I was talking about earlier. If you Google search that, there's a clip of one of the clips. You'll see these tank engines switching the Southampton docks, and the vibe is awesome. It's got a great I don't know if that's quite the right word to describe it. But it is a vibe. Just watching these tank engines and these towering cranes and ships, old tramp steamers and the like. Um, I I have a feeling I've talked
Oh,
about
I'm
this
seeing it now.
before.
I just googled it.
Yeah, uh,
Yeah,
I I have a feeling that like even when I have a basement, it's not like I'm gonna have one big layout. It's gonna be I'm gonna have 10 micro layouts and 5 4x8s because I I have too many interests. There's too many things where it's like I love this about this thing and I love that about that thing. I'm not. I
and listen,
admire
that's
folks with
okay.
the focus. It's taken a long time to accept that that's okay. It is
Yeah,
okay, but it has taken a long time to accept that that's okay because I think for a long time it's um, it hasn't been detrimental financially. I've still been able to maintain a certain degree of focus with what I do and don't acquire, but it, it, it it's the challenge of I think that I still need a sense of completion. I don't want to have too many open things. And I think that the fear that I've had historically has been, well, if I'm interested in this and this and this, like, am I ever going to like finish these things? Because I'm not one of these model railroaders who's like, oh, my layout's never done. It's always a work. Like, good for you. I need a sense
yeah,
of this is the point at which it's done with all
yeah.
these projects. Hence why I release them on GreatTrainLayoutsLive.com. So
I just
that's
I
yeah.
just love that there's so many. model railroading in general, that's one thing about the hobby that is really, I don't think not talked about a lot, is that you can create so many different operational variances um, in any sort of space. Um, that's one aspect that I think everybody focuses on the trains, but like looking at like what you built here, like this is something that I could imagine. Like there's a friend of mine who's a big PRR fan. I could imagine him having this like in his basement or in a setup like that, where he's working on, these sort of things. And he's got a small little, HO scale or N scale layout. Um, there really is a lot you can do in small sizes. And oh, those look like
Yep.
I just noticed your switch stands look like little ground throws, like HO scale ground throws. That looks awesome.
I thank you. I'm pleased to say that that is my limited 3D modeling capability at work. I actually designed those up in Blender like a little over a year ago. I was building the Virginian Railway project layout for
Yeah,
that model railroader did back in 2012, and I've shown that on a previous live stream. And it's
yeah.
like, well, it needs the Caboose Industry ground throw. Okay, I guess I'm going to make the Caboose Industry ground throws. Um, so, oh, speaking of things, that layout, oof, I love that. There's certain layouts I love. Like I like how this one turned out. This is a fun one. This is one that I can feel like if somebody else wants to build it, good for them. But there's other layouts that I build where I'm like, ugh, I wouldn't mind actually having this. I wouldn't mind that. Uh, so it's all a matter of kind of picking and choosing and saying, what am I looking for at this particular point in my life in my railroad? Because not all
Yeah.
not every layout can be everything. So it's kind of saying, well, do I perceive as going to be satisfying to me? It's satisfying the most criteria at this point in time. Um,
Yeah.
that's been my
I mean,
progression with
there's
it.
like itches. Everybody has like an itch of something. Like, even though I have Santa Fe stuff for like the 80s and 90s is like what I primarily want to model. Like I said, I have a Super Chief and El Capitan passenger train or El Capitan passenger train. Um, I've got the SP Daylight with the 4449. I've got the UP Excursion train. I've got the Milwaukee Road Hiawatha. Like some of that stuff is just really neat. I've got a Blue Goose, which didn't even exist in the time frame that I'm trying to model, but it's still something that's really cool. That if you like it, you get it, and that's what makes it fun. Um, um, yeah, I just that's what makes this hobby fun is all of that stuff. I noticed I see you have a little furry friend, or I just saw you had a furry friend. I have two furry friends. That one's actually sitting outside the door, wants to come in here and say hi, but she cannot come in here because she will rip up the couch, the side of the couch. Um,
Uh, that is tough. Luca, he was a naughty boy earlier today. He climbed into a cabinet 2 shelves high to knock down his supply of treats and
oh no!
had a good probably dozen of them before I thought maybe I should go downstairs and see what that crash
Oh
was
no!
about. So he's a wonderful character, but in
So
here
that was
he's usually fine.
him coming on stream saying sorry about that earlier, Dad.
No, he's
It
not
won't happen.
apologetic. Let us not fool ourselves here. He has no apologies about that. He's just well, it's getting close to his feeding time. So he's really like, okay, I'll spend a
uh,
little bit of lap time with you, but you're
yeah,
supposed to feed me. That's where it's going to. Jimmy, you're absolutely right. The quote, "You can do anything you want to, but you can't do everything," um,
yeah,
is so
that is
true.
true. It's
Uh,
very true.
which is, I think, part of one of the other joys of model railroading is that, especially if you're fortunate enough to live in an area where you're near enough people with their own layouts, you get to experience different things at different layouts,
Yeah,
uh, so that you don't have to feel like you need to do everything. And that's, I think, part of the team effort. And you can help somebody with their layout; they can help you with yours. Uh, another of the many benefits that this hobby provides.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know what I was going to mention earlier when we were talking about the shays and being able to handle the merchandise, the try before you buy. I got to
Hmm.
see your shay at Amherst,
Yeah.
aka the
Uh-huh.
Amherst Train Show in West Springfield, Massachusetts. For those who aren't familiar, uh, but I got to see it in person, and that was cool.
Yeah, the Shay is has definitely been one of the cool aspects of our projects this year. The one thing that it's kind of funny because you talk about those 3D models, those models. That one that you saw, Nick, was 3D printed, and man, I can't tell you how many times at show people will ask me, um, is that glow in the dark?
Yes,
Because
it
it
does.
has that.
Yeah.
It does look very much glow in the dark, but um, sometimes after a while, if it's like a kid that walks up and they ask it, we're like, yeah, it's glow in the dark. Just to kind of like, it's a little too hard to explain to a 6 year old that no, it's not glow in the dark, it's a sample, that's too technical, and they're just kind of looking at you like, what the heck are you talking about, dude? That it's glow in the dark. I know that it's glow in the dark. I have glow in the dark toys at home, that sort of thing. But no, the Shay has been really cool. That's been a really fun project. Unfortunately, no more Class D Shays exist, but we did get sounds of Shays off of a couple of I think it was Cast Scenic number 6 is the one that we recorded the sounds
Yes,
for.
Western Maryland 6. Yep.
Yeah, yeah,
With
and that's the one that we that's the Shay that we'll be using our sound set for. But those locomotives in general are just so cool. I went to the Illinois Railway Museum a lot as a kid, and
mm,
they have the West Niles and Lumber Company Shay that operates there. And man, like those things are just so cool to just sit there and observe. And the fact that they don't have like the traditional chuff chuff sounds, they have the very um,
clank.
the unique yeah, exactly. I don't even know how to really
And
quite
the
describe it, but
machine gun speed of the pistons, where it's
yeah,
jigga
exactly.
jigga jigga, like that. It sounds like it's going 100 miles an hour when it's going 5.
4. Yeah.
Yes.
But those shays will be really cool too. I was surprised about those shays that they had so many prototypes. Not only just like you mentioned Western Maryland being one of them, but the Class D shays are just so um, unique because they have. Oh man, I think the Southern had them. Um,
Norfolk and
CNO had them.
Western.
Norfolk and Western. Um, Western Maryland, we said earlier, and then of course you get the lumber companies like Carolina Northwestern and the Red River Lumber and a few others. Those they all had those too. But um, yeah, I was just surprised about how many different pretty major road names had them. And I think when people think of shades, they think of logging, but like I think it was the CNO and NNW. They were used for coal, which was interesting. They were used in the coal mines. Which I just think is fascinating to see. And there's, you know, always the fun chance that you could get a Cast Scenic, fantasy scheme in the future at some point. But nonetheless, it's still cool to see those locomotives, and I can't wait till we get some painted samples because we've been waiting on some painted samples of those. Hopefully, we'll have some for Train Fest. I'm hoping we get a lot of samples for Train Fest up in Milwaukee. That's such a fun show. That's probably in my opinion, it's the next greatest show besides Amherst.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of just the amount of things that are there. It's perfect for kids and families. It's just a really really good show um, for a lot of people. And I'm glad it's back this year, and I'm excited to head back there. I'll be near my hometown of Illinois, or home state, I should say, of Illinois, being from the Chicagoland area. So, um, yeah, but those shades are gonna be awesome. I can't wait for those to come in too.
Yep. And for those of you who are tuning in and sticking around this long, always great to have you along for the ride. So I'll give you a sneak peek. We're going to be, that's going to be an upcoming Build It with Broadway Limited, where I'm going to be constructing the Western Maryland's Chaffee branch, which was their coal hauling. That's where the
Oh,
six
cool.
worked. Uh,
Got it. Okay.
so that's where the 6 worked. So that's what we're going to be building. um, to coincide with when that one comes out. So
Yeah.
can you'll get to see my Norfolk and Western Shay for the interlude on that while we talk about how you the Chafee branch fits the Western Maryland vibe. But honestly, it's the so many of those Class D shades. I feel like more of them were built to haul coal than were built to haul logs. So
Yeah.
you could, yeah, to do something that's kind of coal centric with them translates across a number of the different railroads.
Yeah, and we've made plenty of hopper cars before. We've rolling stock wise, we've made the AAR 70-ton the triple bay hoppers before, so you could find some of those still available at dealers and stuff now. You can get a 4-pack with coal loads and everything for about 150 bucks MSRP. Or if you want to get a single car, you can get a single hopper for about 40 bucks. And those are really, really well detailed. And they're very light too. They're very free rolling. I know a lot of rolling stock sometimes is hit or miss with that. Because sometimes you have to, get the little bell oil out and make sure that, the bearings and everything are good to go. So you don't have any, kind of dragging equipment. You don't want to set off a defect detector or anything like that. But the passenger, not the passenger cars, the coal hoppers that we've done, the AAR hoppers are a great option too if you want some rolling stock to go with your shays. Again, everything we've talked about you can find on our website, broadway-limited.com, for more information on all of that.
Exactly. So I'm pretty happy because I'm coming up towards the end of my switching. I have not yet had any accidents that have required you guys to remind me to get tested for questionable substances. Um, it's been a smooth thing.
No FRA test today.
No FRA test today, thank goodness. This man, I give it up to Gordon Oderford, who Odegaard. That's what it. Who designed this back in June of '57. Um, this is a killer plan. This plays
It
really
really is.
well. I think this is good. So what I would say, kind of reviewing the track, so talking about the design and what I've learned from playtesting it and building it, I think uh, there's a lot of possibility with how you with what you which scenery, what industries you choose, what you put where, how many, how few. Um, but you can do a lot in a little. You've got the ability to just let your train run around in circles. You've got your ability to do a lot of switching. I'd say if you coordinate it, you could probably have two switch crews going on at once. If somebody's kind of taking care of the grain mill side of things, and somebody else is working this freight station, the knitting mill, you could probably have two crews going on at once. You'd want to coordinate that, but you could make it happen. Uh, but I think it's a nice little robust track plan. So I think that the takeaways are um, you can have a lot of fun with switching. If you have live staging with a car ferry is also awesome. It's fun to switch this out and then just
Yeah.
look now those hoppers when I'm staging the next session. Guess what? They're right where they need to be, as are all of these cars that I've just worked. Some of which I could randomly put on to the car ferry to be switched back to interchange. Some of which could go from interchange to another industry on here. Um, so there's a lot of possibilities with how you cycle that out. Although I'm realizing I put my power on the wrong track to run around it. Um, because I would,
But you didn't derail. That's what
I,
counts. Is that you
I,
didn't have any accidents.
I didn't. I'm thinking, okay, so I would probably adapt this by trying to put. I don't know how you do it, but if maybe some Walther's curve turnouts in here, in the staging
Yeah.
area, so that you have a runner. Because the thing is, like, otherwise, because even if I went on the other track, I don't have a way of getting around those cars unless I disrupt the car ferry stuff, or unless I go all the way around the layout. So I feel like mm, that's probably something to change. I could. The other way it could be done is rather than having the yard ladder like so, um, where it's straight off of this, where this tight curve is with the freight house, have a curved turnout come to the other track
Yeah.
just to
I was even say if you could do like a curved, like double crossover where those back in the staging area,
yeah.
because then you could at least run around. And then if you had a track that, like, say like the car ferry, quote unquote, left with those coal coppers, and you wanted to, instead of just spawning in, you could just shove a track of cars onto that car ferry and space it out however you wanted it to. That at least give you some options to use the locomotive to stage what you wanted to do um, for the car ferry, and then you have that crossover and free track to run back around and get out that way too.
So I've now just done the thing that I said should be done. So and this is why I'm such a big proponent of playtesting, is because it's stuff like this where you can plan and know that you've got the space, you've got the track, you've got the industries, but it isn't until that you play it that you might realize, oh wait, if I'm hauling, let's see how many cars, 9 cars into interchange, I don't have a means of getting around them easily.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what comes up through the process. So if you like what you've seen here and would like help with designing and/or bringing your design to life for testing in Train Z, I do take commissions over at Great Train Layouts Live, or not Great Train Layouts Live.com, GreatTrainLayouts.com. You can see examples of my work there. Obviously, these routes that I build on the stream eventually end up there. I just released the Eagle River Morton branch. What's that? No, wait. Was that the one I just released over at GreatTrainLayouts.com? Jesus Lord mercy. I have so many layouts, I forget what all. No, I just released the Metro Belton Terminal, which I did back at the start of the year. So, another classic model railroad track blend. So, if so, you that one you can download for free. Morton Branch is probably going to be next month's free release. But if you want to get access to it now, it is available at patreon.com/the Roundhouse. For as little as $1 a month, you're going to supporting the work that we do here on the live stream. And you get early access to Train Z routes like the Eagle River Morton Branch. And probably a few months out now, you'll get early access to this guy once I've had a chance to put in the walls, do some super detailing, stuff like that. So now we did all our switching. I put all the cars thinking, well, maybe I'll get to all of them, maybe I won't. But that was only 50 minutes. That was only 50 minutes of switching, and we got it all done. We did good.
Yeah. Well, I should say you did good. You were the one that was switching.
Well, you kept me company, and you kept me on my toes, clearly. Because,
but yeah, but I know I just enjoyed watching it too.
well, I'm glad that you.
Next stop is you got to start adding some like little details, like little like scenes of like people, like lifting crates out of a pickup truck or something like that.
Yeah, some layouts I go to town, and I super detail it within an inch of its life. Um, I will admit that there's a number where it's like I hit a certain point and it's like I'm done and ready to move on to the next one. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and if people want more detail, I encourage them to kind of modify it to their means further. Um, I used to go more in with each single one, but that was back in a day when I thought I was doing this because I was going to play with them. When it dawned on me, maybe I'm doing this because I actually like just building the things.
Yeah.
So certain ones will still captivate the imagination, and then I'll just detail it within an inch of its life. Other ones, it's more like as long as it doesn't look bad, as long as it doesn't like seem too sparse when you're switching it out, then it's probably good to go. So we are going to get our little B6 parked here. And if you've seen this and you're like, hey, I want my little B6, then you should head over to Broadway Limited's website.
Yeah, if this hasn't convinced you already, then I don't know what will. But the B6 will be for sure. You could switch just as much as Nick did in 50 minutes with a real actual B6, not not a virtual B6, a real actual B6 that will smoke, make the sound. You'll have a fun time with it.
Yes.
You got to make sure that you get your order in for one of those for sure.
Mm-hmm. So as we get tucked away here in the engine shed, I want to thank you, Kurt, for joining us tonight and talking about the nature of the business, giving us some insight as to how we badger you to get the things we want made. And we'll just end. We'll do the full thing now. This is what I love. This sim side of things. We're gonna go walk inside the engine house and just take a nice look as we've parked ourselves in there.
There you go.
And I want to thank you guys who tuned in to watch Great Train Layouts live. It's always fun to have you along for the ride. Your feedback, your input, your camaraderie. It's always great to have you. And so check greattrainlayouts.com/live to see the next date. Typically the third or fourth Thursday of the month is when these are live streamed. And next month is do I want to say or do I? Okay, I'll say next month we're gonna go. Oh, am I going back there? Or am I doing that? No, I'm doing that. Next month we're going to be if I get it done, we're going to be going to Strasbourg. We're going to be doing something Strasbourg
nice.
related next month. And people are like, what about the Conrail one you keep saying? Conrail's going to be the next Build It with Broadway. That's slotted for October. So,
yeah, hopefully Dave will be able to join you for that one.
Yeah, that's going to be fun to have him on for that. But next month we get to have we get to go to Strasbourg. We get to look at how the heck you take something as iconic as Strasbourg and turn it into a model. That's going to be me coming up with a plan. I'm going to have to design that plan. I have a loose idea of what I want to do for it, but I actually have to go mock it up to make sure I have something to build for you guys.
Executing.
Yep. So I am going with that. Great to have you, Curtis. Great to have you guys. It's been a lot of fun, and I will see you next time.
Are we clear?
Now we're clear.